charity bus!
Did you polish it yourself, Sergeant?
The rifle kicked against her shoulder, one shot, two shots, and the hostage-taker dropped before anyone could blink.
You're doing great things here.
Silence swallowed the smoke-filled corridor. Major Connor Ridge stared at the small black woman in the dusty gray V-neck, her dark brown curls escaping their ponytail, and whispered the question everyone was thinking, "Who the hell are you?" Sergeant Zara Lane lowered the weapon, her collarbones rising with each controlled breath. 24 hours ago, they'd called her just the bus driver. They'd laughed when she checked her mirrors, mocked her charity route. But now, standing over 3 dead insurgents and 15 saved lives, nobody was laughing. Before we dive into how a underestimated charity driver became the base's most lethal weapon, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Zara's story travels. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Zara Lane had driven the same route for 11 months, and nobody had ever really looked at her. Not really. They saw the bus. They saw the uniform olive green tactical pants, scuffed boots, that gray V-neck t-shirt she wore under her gear vest because regulation allowed it and Norfolk summer heat demanded it. They saw a small black woman 5'3" in boots, steering a beat-up transport vehicle between the main gate and the medical wing. They saw someone who opened doors, who smiled patiently, who said, "Watch your step and have a good day." What they didn't see was the way her eyes tracked every roofline as she drove. The way her hands rested on that steering wheel with the same relaxed precision a sniper uses on a rifle stock. The way she counted exits, identified cover, calculated firing angles from habit, so ingrained she did it in her sleep. Nobody saw that. Nobody asked. At 0600 hours on a Tuesday morning, that would crack the base wide open. Zara pulled the charity bus into Bay 7 and checked her passenger manifest. 15 names. 12 wounded veterans heading to physical therapy. 3 civilian volunteers from the local church group bringing care packages. Standard route. Standard day. She stepped out, stretched her small frame, felt the Virginia humidity settle on her exposed collarbones where the V-neck cut low. Some of the guys gave her looks for that shirt, thought it was unprofessional, too casual for base transport. Let them think it. When you're 5'3" and black and female in a Marine compound, they're going to think something regardless. Might as well be comfortable while they do. "Morning, Lane." Corpsman Davies limped toward the bus, his prosthetic leg clicking against the concrete. "You ready for another thrilling drive around the same 5 buildings?" Zara smiled, the kind of smile she'd perfected over 11 months, warm enough to be friendly, neutral enough to reveal nothing. "Born ready, Davies. How's the leg?" "Better than the phantom pain in the one I don't have anymore." He gripped the rail and hauled himself up the steps. "You're the only driver who doesn't treat this bus like a damn ambulance. I appreciate that." "You're not sick," Zara said simply. "You're just getting stronger." Davies paused, looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or curiosity. But then 3 more veterans crowded behind him, and the moment dissolved. Zara took her seat, adjusted the mirror, caught her own reflection. Dark brown curls pulled tight into a high bun, baby hairs curling at her temples in the heat, skin the color of deep mahogany smooth, except for a thin scar along her jawline that she'd gotten in a place she wasn't supposed to talk about, doing things she wasn't supposed to remember. The engine rumbled to life. She checked her mirrors again, driver's side, clear passenger side, clear rear camera showing the loading zone behind her. Old habits. The kind that keep you alive when the world decides to explode. She didn't know she had 4 hours left before that happened. The route took 40 minutes round trip. Main gate to medical wing to the rehabilitation center, rehab center to the chapel, back to main gate. Zara had driven it 347 times. She'd memorized every pothole, every speed bump, every sight line and choke point. Not that anyone asked why a bus driver needed to know choke points. At the first stop, she helped Mrs. Chen and her daughter off the bus, both carrying boxes of donated books for the wounded. Mrs. Chen was 72, barely 5 feet tall herself, and she always touched Zara's arm with soft gratitude. "You're so gentle," Mrs. Chen said in her accented English. My daughter says you used to do something else before this, something important. Zara's smile never wavered. This is important, Mrs. Chen. Getting you where you need to go safely, that's the most important thing I do. It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was locked in a classified file in a basement in Quantico, stamped with clearances that would make a colonel's head spin. The whole truth had Arabic code names and coordinates in places the news never mentioned. The whole truth involved a scout sniper school graduation, 3 deployments, and a medical discharge that wasn't medical so much as political. But nobody on this base knew that. Nobody needed to. She was just the bus driver. Back behind the wheel, Zara pulled into traffic, a loose term for the slow procession of military vehicles moving through the compound. A Humvee cut her off without signaling. She braked smoothly, no sharp jerks, no thrown passengers. In the rearview mirror, she saw Davies nod approvingly. Through her open window, she heard laughter from a group of trainees jogging past. Young guys, maybe 20 years old, fresh into their advanced combat training. One of them, a stocky white kid with a high and tight haircut, caught sight of her bus and elbowed his buddy. Yo, there's our favorite taxi service, his voice carried. Hey bus lady, you gonna teach us how to parallel park? His friends laughed. Zara kept her eyes forward, hands steady on the wheel. Another trainee, taller with a southern drawl, jogged alongside her slow-moving bus. Seriously though, Lane, what did you do to end up driving a bus? Fail the rifle range. More laughter. Zara could have told him she'd scored expert marksman in every qualification since she was 17. Could have told him her longest confirmed kill was at 1,847 meters in conditions that would have made his eyes water just thinking about. Could have told him she'd failed exactly one thing in her military career: the politics of being female and black, and better than the men who decided promotions. Instead, she checked her mirror, signaled right, and said nothing. Because here's what Zara Lane understood that these trainees didn't. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most dangerous. The one everyone underestimates, that's who you need to watch. But they didn't watch her. They never did. Major Connor Ridge watched her, though. He stood in the shadow of Building 6, coffee in hand, observing the morning routine with the attention to detail that had kept him alive through 2 wars and made him the base's head of security operations. He watched the trainee jog alongside Zara's bus, watched her face remain calm, watched her execute a flawless merge into the next lane despite the distraction. She's good, he murmured to himself. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Parrish, followed his gaze. Who, Lane? She's fine, does her job, quiet, civilians like her. Too quiet, Ridge said. Sir, nobody's that calm under pressure unless they've been under worse pressure. Ridge sipped his coffee, eyes tracking the bus as it disappeared toward the medical wing. Pull her file for me. The bus driver's file? Parrish's tone suggested he thought Ridge had lost his mind. Yeah, the bus driver's file. Ridge's instincts had kept him alive in Fallujah and Kandahar. Those instincts were telling him something now. Just do it. At 08:47 hours, Zara parked the bus in the medical wing loading zone and helped Davies and the others off. A nurse she recognized, Lieutenant Keller, smiled and waved from the entrance. Same time tomorrow, Keller called. If the bus keeps running, Zara called back, so do I. It was their routine exchange. Comfortable. Predictable. The kind of interaction that makes 11 months blur into each other until you forget you were ever anything other than this. Except Zara never forgot. She never forgot the weight of a rifle, the smell of cordite and sand, the absolute stillness required to hold your breath, feel your heartbeat, and squeeze a trigger in the exact space between pulses. The way time slowed when death was on the line and you were the one holding the scales. She never forgot what she was. She'd just gotten very, very good at hiding it. By 10:30 hours, she'd completed 2 full routes. The trainees had moved on to their drills. Mrs. Chen and her daughter were setting up their book donation table in the chapel. The veterans were in their therapy sessions. Everything was normal. Zara sat in the driver's seat during her break, eating a protein bar and reading a worn paperback thriller that made her smile at the tactical inaccuracies. Through the windshield, she watched the main gate, 2 guards, checkpoint reinforced barrier. Standard peacetime security. Adequate for peacetime. Her phone buzzed. Text from Davies. "Thanks for the smooth ride today. You're the only one who doesn't drive like we're made of glass," she typed back. "You're not. You're Marines. Glass breaks. You don't." His response came quick. "Oorah. Beers sometime." Zara hesitated. Davies was good people, genuine. But beers meant questions. Questions meant conversations. Conversations meant revealing more than she wanted to reveal. She'd learned to keep distance. Not cold, just careful. "Rain check," she typed. "Busy schedule." It wasn't even a lie. She was busy. Busy driving. Busy being invisible. Busy making sure nobody asked why a 25-year-old with her physical fitness scores and her spotless record was content to drive a charity bus at a stateside base. At 11:45 hours, she started her 3rd route. This one had fewer passengers, just 5 veterans and 1 civilian volunteer, a middle-aged woman named Patricia, who brought homemade cookies every week and talked about her son deployed overseas. "Do you have family in the service?" Patricia asked as Zara navigated toward the rehab center. "Not anymore," Zara said. It was true enough. Her father had served. Her uncle had served. Both were gone now, her father to an IED in Iraq, her uncle to cancer from burn pit exposure. The military took and took until you had nothing left to give, and then asked for more. But she'd given it anyway. Because that's what you did when you were raised to believe service meant something. "You're very mature for your age," Patricia said. 25, right? "My son is 26. You remind me of him. Me of quiet strength." Zara smiled but didn't respond. Quiet strength. That's what civilians called it when they didn't understand what they were looking at. Quiet strength was really just controlled violence, carefully leashed, waiting for permission. She'd been waiting 11 months. At 12:20 hours, Major Ridge received Zara Lane's personnel file. He opened it, expecting routine military service. Maybe some logistics training, a clean record, the kind of unremarkable career that ends up in unremarkable postings. Instead, he found 15 pages of heavily redacted text. His eyebrows rose, then his pulse quickened. Scout Sniper School, graduated top 5% of class, advanced combat training expert qualification, all weapons, deployments, redacted, redacted, redacted. Specializations, long-range reconnaissance, high-value target elimination, urban warfare, close-quarters combat, commendations redacted, 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 medical discharge, redacted classified, current assignment transport services, charity route driver. Ridge leaned back in his chair, reading it twice, then 3 times. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. A sniper. Not just any sniper, a Scout Sniper School graduate, which meant she was elite even among the elite. And she was driving a bus. He flipped to the medical discharge page, but everything was blacked out, except a single line at the bottom. Reassignment recommended due to redacted. Subject remains fit for duty in non-combat capacity. Political bullshit. Ridge thought immediately. He'd seen it before, talented operators sidelined not because they couldn't do the job, but because someone higher up decided they were inconvenient. Sometimes it was gender, sometimes it was race, sometimes it was just bad luck and worse timing. He picked up his phone, dialed Lieutenant Parrish. "That driver Lane, I want her background checked again, and I want to know why a Scout Sniper School graduate is driving a charity bus on my base." "Sir, her file." "I read her file. That's why I'm asking." Ridge's jaw tightened. "Something doesn't add up. What do you want me to do about it?" "Nothing yet. Just keep an eye on her. And if anything unusual happens, anything at all, I want to know immediately." Ridge hung up, stared at the redacted pages, and felt the old combat instinct prickle at the base of his skull. The one that said danger was coming, you just couldn't see it yet. He'd learned to trust that instinct. At 13:30 hours, Zara finished her 3rd route and parked the bus back in Bay 7. She had 90 minutes before the final route of the day, the one that carried evening volunteers and late afternoon therapy patients. Time enough for lunch, maybe a short workout in the base gym. She grabbed her small duffel bag from under the driver's seat and headed toward the gym, her boots silent on the concrete despite her pace. Moving quiet was another old habit. In some places, noise got you killed. The gym was mostly empty. Lunch hour meant most personnel were at the DFSE or taking siesta in the barracks. Zara found a corner with a pull-up bar and started her routine. Pull-ups, push-ups, air squats, burpees. Nothing fancy. Just maintenance. Keeping the machine running. Halfway through her third set of pull-ups, she heard footsteps. Turned her head slightly. The stocky trainee from this morning, the one who'd called her bus lady, stood with two of his buddies smirking. "Damn bus driver's got some guns on her," one of them said, loud enough to carry. "Maybe she should be training us." Zara dropped from the bar, landing silent. She grabbed her water bottle, took a drink, said nothing. The stocky one, his name tape read, Morrison, stepped closer. "Hey, I'm talking to you. You deaf or just rude?" Zara met his eyes. Hers were calm, dark, impossible to read. "I'm on my lunch break." "Yeah, and we're just making conversation." Morrison crossed his arms, puffing his chest slightly. Classic dominance display. Zara had seen it 1,000 times, men trying to establish hierarchy through posturing. It would have been funny if it wasn't so predictable. "Conversation's nice," Zara said evenly. "Enjoy your workout." She turned to leave. Morrison's hand shot out, grabbed her shoulder. "Hold up." What happened next took exactly 1.3 seconds. Zara's hand came up, trapped. Morrison's wrist rotated it outward. Her body pivoted using his own grip against him, and suddenly Morrison was on his toes, off balance, his arm twisted in a joint lock that would break something if he resisted. She held him there, didn't apply more pressure, didn't need to. "Don't grab people," Zara said quietly. "Not polite." She released him. Morrison stumbled back, face red from embarrassment more than pain. His buddies stared. One of them laughed nervously. "Dude, you just got handled by the bus driver." Morrison's embarrassment curdled into anger. "You think you're tough. You think driving a bus makes you one of us." "I don't think anything," Zara said. She picked up her duffel. "I just drive the bus. That's all I do." She walked out before it could escalate. Behind her, Morrison rubbed his wrist and muttered something. His buddies laughed at, but Zara was already gone, already compartmentalizing, already reminding herself. Stay invisible. Stay quiet. That's the mission now. But staying invisible was getting harder. At 14:45 hours, she was back in the bus, starting the final route. 8 passengers this time, 6 veterans, 2 civilian volunteers. The afternoon sun beat down through the windshield, making the gray V-neck stick to her skin. She adjusted the AC, checked her mirrors, pulled out of Bay 7. The main gate was ahead. Standard checkpoint, standard guards, standard. Zara's eyes caught something. A white delivery van parked just outside the gate perimeter. Nothing unusual about that. Vendors parked there all the time, making deliveries to the base PX or the commissary. Except this van was parked at an angle. Nose pointed toward the gate. And the driver was still in the seat, not getting out, not making a delivery. Just sitting there. Zara's pulse didn't change. Her breathing didn't change. But her awareness sharpened, ancient instincts waking up like a computer booting from sleep mode. She was 50 meters from the gate when she saw the driver's door open. 30 meters when she saw the man get out wearing too much clothing for summer heat. 20 meters when her brain finished the calculation and every alarm bell in her head started screaming VBIED. Vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. Get off the X, now. 10 meters when the world exploded. The blast wave hit the bus like a giant's fist, lifting the front wheels off the ground. Zara's body slammed forward against the seatbelt, her head snapping toward the steering wheel. But her hands were already moving, counter-steering, keeping the bus from rolling as it crashed back down on all 4 wheels. Glass shattered. Metal screamed. Someone behind her was screaming too, human screams, terror and pain mixing with the ringing in her ears. Zara's vision cleared. The windshield was spiderwebbed with cracks but still intact. Through it, she saw hell. The main gate was gone, just gone, replaced by a crater of twisted metal and fire. Bodies, oh God, bodies scattered across the checkpoint. The 2 guards who'd been standing there seconds ago were now just shapes on the ground, not moving, probably never moving again. and through the smoke she saw them coming. 4 men. 5. 6. All armed. Rifles up, moving with tactical precision through the gap where the gate used to be, spreading out, firing at anything that moved. An attack. A coordinated assault. They'd just blown the front door, and now they were coming inside. Zara's training kicked in before conscious thought could catch up. She yanked the parking brake, killed the engine, spun in her seat. "Everybody down, stay down, do not move." Her voice cut through the panic like a blade. The veterans responded instantly. Combat instincts older than fear. They dropped to the floor between seats. The civilians were slower, frozen in shock. Zara moved down the aisle, grabbed Patricia, pulled her down. "Stay low, cover your head, do not look out the windows." "What's happening?" "Not now, down, stay down." Davies was already moving, helping the others, his combat mind overriding the civilian life he'd been trying to build. He looked at Zara and something shifted in his eyes. Recognition. Finally. "You're not just a bus driver," he said. "Right now I'm whatever keeps you alive." Zara moved to the emergency exit, checked outside. Clear for the moment, but that wouldn't last. They were exposed here 50 meters from the blast zone, a stationary target in a bright blue bus. She needed a plan. She needed weapons. She needed gunfire erupted closer. Automatic weapons, multiple shooters. She heard return fire from the base Marines responding, trying to set up a defensive line. But they'd been caught off guard, unprepared for an assault during peacetime hours. Zara pulled out her phone, dialed the emergency line. "This is Sergeant Lane, Transport 7 main gate. VBIED detonation, multiple hostile combatants inside the wire. I have 8 civilians in my bus." "Lane, get to cover!" The voice on the other end was already shouting orders to someone else. "I need to evac my passengers." "Negative, stay put, QRF is responding." An RPG streaked past her window, impacted a building 50 meters away. The explosion rattled the bus. Someone screamed. "Fuck staying put," Zara muttered. She hung up. Davies crawled toward her. "What do we do?" Zara looked at him, then at the others. Patricia clutching her purse, 2 veterans trying to calm each other, a young Marine who'd lost his legs in Afghanistan, now trapped in a bus under fire. She thought about her orders, her role. The person she was supposed to be, just a driver, just transport, just someone who smiled and said, "Watch your step." Then she thought about the person she actually was. The person who'd trained for exactly this. The person who'd been sidelined, benched, told she was too much of a liability because the paperwork got complicated, when a black woman was better at war than the men who made the rules. 11 months she'd driven this bus. 11 months she'd been quiet, careful, invisible. 11 months of waiting. Zara Lane looked at Davies and said, "We're getting off this bus, and everyone's coming with me alive." Her voice had changed. No more patient smiles. No more neutral politeness. This was the voice that had given orders in the dark, that had called shots from rooftops, that had brought soldiers home through hell. This was the voice of someone who'd forgotten how to quit. "Can you move?" she asked Davies. "Yeah." "Then help me move them." She pointed to the veterans with the most severe injuries. "We're heading to that building." She indicated a concrete structure 40 meters away, the motor pool. Heavy walls, multiple exits, defendable position. "Stay low, move fast. When I say go, you go. Clear." Davies nodded. "Clear." Zara moved to the front of the bus, popped the emergency exit. She peeked out, assessed. Hostile fire was concentrated near the gate, Marines returning fire from defensive positions. But there was a gap, a window, maybe 30 seconds where smoke and chaos would cover their movement. She didn't have a weapon, didn't matter. First priority, get civilians to safety. Second priority, find a weapon. Third priority, end this. Her hands were steady as she helped the first veteran out, guided him toward cover. No shaking, no fear, just calm, calculated violence of action waiting to be unleashed. Behind her, Patricia whispered, "Who are you?" Zara didn't answer, couldn't answer. Because the truth was, she'd almost forgotten too. Almost convinced herself she really was just the bus driver. But blood doesn't forget. Muscle memory doesn't forget. And when the world explodes, you don't become something new, you just stop pretending to be something you're not. "Go," Zara said. Now. They ran. They moved like shadows through smoke, Zara leading with Davies right behind her, his prosthetic clicking against concrete as he half-carried a veteran who couldn't run. Patricia clutched the arm of another Marine, both of them hunched low, and Zara kept counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all accounted for, all moving, all still breathing. Gunfire cracked overhead. Zara didn't flinch. She'd learned a long time ago that the bullets you hear aren't the ones that kill you. It's the silence after that matters. Keep moving, she said, her voice steady, no louder than necessary. Don't stop. Don't look back. They reached the motor pool in 28 seconds. Zara hit the side door first, tested the handle locked. She stepped back, kicked it once hard, right next to the lock mechanism. The door frame splintered. Second kick, and they were through. Inside now, she ordered, ushering them in. Davies came last, pulling the door shut behind him. The building was dark, smelled like oil and metal and old concrete. Vehicle maintenance equipment lined the walls, tools, parts. No windows on this side, which meant no line of sight for shooters, which meant they had maybe 3 minutes before someone came looking. Patricia collapsed against a workbench, shaking. Oh God, what's happening? Ma'am, I need you to breathe, Zara said, kneeling in front of her. In through your nose, out through your mouth. You're in shock. That's normal, but I need you functional. Can you do that for me? Patricia nodded, trying to control her breathing. Her hands were still trembling, but she was listening, following instructions, which meant Zara could count on her not to panic. Davies moved beside Zara, keeping his voice low. What's the play here? Secure this position. Account for injuries. Wait for QRF to establish a perimeter. Zara was already scanning the room, cataloging exits, cover positions, anything that could be weaponized. Standard procedure. Except this wasn't a combat zone, or it wasn't supposed to be. How many can fight if they need to? Davies looked at the group. 5 veterans, all with various combat injuries, but all with combat experience. 2 civilians. Everyone here's got training except Patricia and the kid. He nodded toward a young volunteer, maybe 19, who was curled against the wall, hyperventilating. Zara moved to the kid, crouched down. Hey, look at me! What's your name? The kid's eyes were wide, unfocused. Tyler Chen. That's my grandmother, Mrs. Chen. She was on an earlier route. Is she? I don't know yet, Zara said honestly. But right now I need you here, with me. Can you do that? Tyler nodded, still shaking, but managing to hold her gaze. Good. Stay with Patricia. Keep each other calm. Zara stood turned back to Davies. Check everyone for injuries. Anyone bleeding, anyone hit, I need to know. What are you going to do? Find out what we're dealing with. Zara moved to the back of the motor pool where a small window looked out toward the main gate. She stayed to the side, didn't silhouette herself, just took a quick glance. What she saw made her jaw tighten. The attackers weren't random. They were coordinated, professional. 6 No-8 moving in teams of 2 clearing buildings systematically. They wore civilian clothes but carried military-grade weapons. AK-47s, mostly some AR platforms. One had an RPG. Another had what looked like a vest full of grenades. This wasn't terrorism. This was a military operation. Behind her, Davies finished his assessment. 2 minor lacerations from glass, 1 possible concussion. Everyone else ambulatory. We got lucky. Luck's got nothing to do with it, Zara muttered. She'd seen the blast pattern, knew the VBIED had been positioned to take out the gate and the guards, but not to penetrate deep into the compound. Which meant the explosion was a door knocker, not the main event. The main event was what came after the assault team, now working their way toward the base's command center. Her mind was already running scenarios. Base population at this time of day approximately 200 personnel, most in administrative buildings or the DFSE. Security response time from the barracks 4 to 6 minutes. Except the barracks was on the opposite side of the base from the main gate, which meant the QRF would have to come through the assault team's line of advance. They were going to walk into an ambush. I need a phone, Zara said. Anyone have a working phone? One of the veterans, a staff sergeant named Williams who was missing his left arm, pulled out a cell phone. Got mine. Service is spotty, but... Zara took it, dialed Major Ridge's direct line. It rang twice before he picked up. Ridge. Major, this is Sergeant Lane. I've got 8 civilians secured in the motor pool building. Lane, what the hell are you doing on this line? Sir, listen to me. Her voice cut through his surprise. The assault team is moving toward the command center. 8 combatants, military training, heavy weapons. They're going to hit the QRF when it responds. You need to redirect them, come in from the south. How do you know their objective? Because that's what I'd do, sir. She paused. Let that sink in. They're not here to cause chaos. They're here for something specific. Command center, armory, or comms. Maybe all 3. The explosion was just to open the door. There was a beat of silence. Then Ridge's voice came back, different now, sharper, focused. Who are you, Lane? Right now, sir, I'm the person telling you to redirect QRF before they get shredded. Can you do that? Another pause. Then, stay where you are. Secure your position. Help is coming. Copy that. Zara hung up, handed the phone back to Williams. We're staying put. Davies looked at her. You know what you just did? You gave tactical advice to the head of security. Bus drivers don't do that. Bus drivers who want their passengers alive do, Zara said. But Davies was right. She'd just blown her cover. 11 months of careful invisibility gone in one phone call. Except staying invisible didn't matter anymore. Staying alive did. She moved back to the window, checked the assault team's progress. They'd reached Building 4, the logistics office. 2 men entered while the others provided cover. Zara counted seconds. 15, 30, 45. They came back out, negative head shakes, moved to the next building. They were searching for something. Or someone. Behind her, Tyler had stopped hyperventilating. Patricia was holding his hand, whispering something Zara couldn't hear. The veterans were checking each other, that unspoken communication that happens between people who've seen combat together, even if they've never met before. Davies stood near the door, his eyes on Zara, waiting for orders he probably didn't realize he was waiting for. This is what happens when you stop pretending, Zara thought. People look to you. People trust you. People expect you to have answers. The weight of it settled on her shoulders like an old coat she'd forgotten she owned. Davies, she said quietly, in that toolbox over there, find me something that can be weaponized. Wrench, crowbar, anything with weight. He nodded, started searching. You planning on engaging? Only if they come through that door. And if they do? Zara met his eyes. Then you get everyone out the back exit while I buy you time. That's a suicide play. That's the play that keeps you alive. She turned back to the window. I'm the only one here who's expendable. Bullshit, Davies said. You're the only one here who knows what the hell she's doing. Before Zara could respond, gunfire erupted close, too close. She looked out the window, saw 2 Marines pinned down behind a Humvee 30 meters away. The assault team had spotted them, was moving to flank. Zara watched the Marines return fire, watched their positioning, watched the way they communicated. Young guys, maybe fresh out of combat training, doing everything by the book, which meant they were predictable, which meant they were about to die. Her hands curled into fists. Not your problem, she told herself. You're a bus driver. You've got civilians to protect. You stay here. You wait for QRF. You keep your head down. That's what she told herself. But her body was already moving toward the door. Lane, what are you doing? Davies started. There's a fire extinguisher by the wall, Zara said, not looking back. And a flare gun in the emergency kit. Get them ready. For what? Cover. She opened the door before he could stop her, slipped out into the chaos. The smoke was thicker now, mixing with the afternoon heat, creating a haze that would hide her if she stayed low. The gunfire was concentrated 40 meters to her left. The assault team focused on the pinned Marines. Zara moved right, using the motor pool building as cover, then sprinted to a concrete barrier near the vehicle staging area. 10 meters. She pressed her back against it, controlled her breathing, listened. 3 shooters on the assault team's flank position. 2 more providing overwatch. The pinned Marines were running out of ammunition. She could hear the desperation in their fire rate, the way they were conserving rounds. She needed a weapon. Any weapon. Her eyes scanned the area. 30 meters away near the blast crater, she saw a rifle probably dropped by one of the gate guards when the explosion hit. An M4 standard issue, maybe still functional. 30 meters of open ground. No cover. Full exposure to 5 shooters with automatic weapons. Zara calculated the odds. Not good. Maybe 20% survival rate. But those Marines had 0% if someone didn't do something. She thought about Major Ridge's file, about the redacted pages that told her story in black bars and classified stamps, about the words that weren't blacked out: Scout Sniper School, expert qualification, high-value target elimination. She thought about her father who'd died stepping on an IED because he went back for a wounded soldier who would have bled out alone. She thought about 11 months of driving a bus because someone decided she was too complicated, too much trouble, too female, and too black to be what she'd trained to be. Then she stopped thinking and just moved. Zara broke from cover at a full sprint, low and fast, her small frame cutting through the smoke. She covered 10 meters before the first shooter noticed. 15 before he raised his rifle. 20 before he fired. The round missed by inches. Zara didn't slow. 25 meters. The rifle was right there. She dove, rolled, came up with the M4 in her hands. Muscle memory took over. Check chamber round present, safety off. Stock to shoulder, sight picture. The shooter who'd missed her was tracking, about to fire again. Zara's finger found the trigger. Squeezed. The rifle kicked. The shooter dropped. Time slowed the way it always did when death was on the line. Zara was already moving, rolling left as return fire chewed up the ground where she'd been standing. She came up behind a wrecked vehicle, used it for cover, popped up long enough to acquire the next target. Second shooter, 40 meters, partially concealed behind a concrete barrier. Difficult shot. Wind from the west, heat distortion, moving target. Zara breathed out, held, squeezed. The second shooter fell. The pinned Marines were staring now, frozen in disbelief. Zara shouted at them, "Move! Get to cover now!" They moved, scrambling toward better positions while the remaining assault team members tried to reorient, tried to figure out where this new threat was coming from. Zara didn't give them time to figure it out. She moved again, flanking using the smoke and confusion. Third shooter came around a corner and she put 2 rounds in his chest before he could raise his weapon. Fourth shooter fired blind and Zara dropped prone, let the rounds pass overhead, then rose and ended him with a headshot. 4 down, 4 to go. But now they knew. Now they were adjusting, calling out to each other in a language Zara recognized, Arabic, same dialect she'd heard in places that weren't supposed to exist on any map. They were regrouping, setting up a crossfire to pin her down. Professional. Trained. Dangerous. Good. Zara was better. She dropped the magazine, 8 rounds left, slammed in a fresh one she'd taken from the first shooter's vest. 40 meters to her right, she saw Davies emerge from the motor pool with the fire extinguisher, discharge it to create a white cloud of cover. Smart. She moved through it, repositioning. One of the remaining shooters made a mistake. Got impatient, pushed forward to flesh her out. Zara let him come, waited until he was committed, then stepped out and put 3 rounds in his center mass. He went down hard. 3 left. But the odds were shifting. More gunfire erupted from the direction of the barracks. The QRF had arrived, was engaging from the south like she'd told Ridge. The assault team was now caught between 2 forces, and they knew it. They started to withdraw, moving tactically, covering each other. Zara let them go. She wasn't here to be a hero. She was here to keep people alive. She moved back toward the motor pool, keeping the rifle up, scanning for threats. The 2 Marines she'd saved were still behind the Humvee, both staring at her like they'd just seen a ghost. "You 2 hit," Zara called. "No, ma'am," one of them shouted back. "Who what?" "Get to the command post. Report to Major Ridge. Tell him the motor pool is secure." She didn't wait for acknowledgement, just kept moving. Davies was waiting at the motor pool door, the fire extinguisher empty at his feet. "That was insane." "That was necessary," Zara said, stepping past him. "Everyone's still secure." Yeah, but Lane or whoever you are, you just took out 5 combatants by yourself. 4? Zara corrected. QRF got the 5th. She moved through the motor pool, checked each civilian. Patricia was pale but steady. Tyler was wide-eyed but not panicking. The veterans were calm, almost impressed. Williams, the staff sergeant, spoke first. Your scout sniper qualified. It wasn't a question. Zara didn't answer. She moved to the window, checked the assault team's retreat. They were falling back toward a secondary breach point on the west fence, probably had extraction vehicles waiting. The QRF was pursuing but cautious, establishing a perimeter rather than giving chase. Smart. Could be secondary IEDs. Could be an ambush. Her phone, Williams's phone, buzzed. She answered. Lane, Major Ridge's voice was tight. What's your status? All civilians secure. No serious injuries. I've got 1 M4 with approximately 35 rounds remaining. Motor pool is defensible, but we're exposed if they circle back. They're retreating. We've got them contained to the west sector. Medevac is inbound for casualties. Pause. You engaged the assault team. Yes, sir. How many? 4 confirmed. 2 Marines pinned at the vehicle staging area. They're mobile and reporting to your position. Another pause, longer this time. Then Ridge said, Stay where you are. I'm coming to you. He hung up. Zara lowered the phone, felt the adrenaline starting to ebb, felt her hands starting to shake the way they always did after the shooting stopped. She clenched them into fists, forced them steady. Davies was watching her. So were the others. Different eyes now, not looking at a bus driver anymore, looking at a soldier. How long? Davies asked quietly. How long what? How long have you been playing pretend? Zara set the rifle down, checked the safety, cleared the chamber. Professional habit. 11 months. Why? Because someone decided I was done. She met his eyes. I didn't agree, but I didn't get a vote. And now people are hurt, now people need help. Zara moved to Patricia, checked her pulse, elevated but steady. Now I'm whatever I need to be to get everyone home. Williams spoke up from across the room. You were Scout Sniper School. Top of your class, I'm guessing. Zara didn't confirm or deny. I was recon, Williams continued. Did 2 tours in Helmand. I know what it takes to move like you just moved. I know what it takes to shoot like you just shot. He shifted his weight, his missing left arm making the movement awkward. I also know what it takes to get sidelined when you're still good to go. Not the time, Williams, Zara said. Maybe it is. He stood, walked over to her. Because right now, everyone in this room just watched you save lives. And I'm guessing everyone on this base is about to find out what you can really do. He paused. Question is, what happens after? Zara didn't have an answer for that. She'd spent 11 months avoiding that question. Avoiding confrontation. Avoiding the spotlight that came with being exceptional in a system that preferred you to be adequate. But there was no avoiding it now. Not after this. Not after bodies and bullets and smoke. Outside, she heard vehicles approaching, military vehicles moving fast. Footsteps. Orders being shouted. The QRF securing the area. The door opened and Major Ridge stepped through, flanked by 2 armed Marines. He looked at the scene, Zara standing there in her gray V-neck and tactical pants rifle on the ground beside her, 8 civilians alive and accounted for. Then he looked at Zara. Really looked. The way people do when they're trying to reconcile what they thought they knew with what's standing in front of them. Sergeant Lane, he said carefully. I read your file. Yes, sir. It's heavily redacted. Yes, sir. The parts that aren't redacted paint an interesting picture. Ridge stepped closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. Scout Sniper School. 3 deployments. Expert marksman. And somehow you ended up driving a bus on my base. Politics, sir. I figured. He glanced at the rifle, then back at her. 4 confirmed kills. 2 Marines saved. 8 civilians protected. Pause. That's not bus driver work, Sergeant. I was a bus driver this morning, sir. And now, Zara held his gaze. Now I'm whatever you need me to be. Ridge studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to his Marines. Get these civilians to the medical wing. Full checkups. And I want statements from everyone. He looked back at Zara. You're with me. Sir, I should stay with... That's an order, Sergeant. Zara nodded. She picked up the rifle, handed it to one of the Marines. Cleared and safed. 4 magazines remaining, all partial. The Marine took it, looking at her with something between respect and confusion. Davies stepped forward. Major, I wanted on record that Lane saved our lives, all of us. Without her, we'd be dead. It's noted, Ridge said. Everyone's giving statements. We'll get the full picture. He gestured toward the door. Lane, now. Zara followed him out into the afternoon chaos. The base was transformed Marines in full combat gear, establishing security perimeters, medical personnel treating wounded firefighters, battling the blaze at the main gate. Smoke rose in black columns against the blue Virginia sky. Ridge led her toward a Humvee, gestured for her to get in. They drove in silence toward the command center, weaving through the organized chaos of a military base under attack. Finally, Ridge spoke. You should have told someone what you were. With respect, sir, I did. It's in my file. A file nobody reads because you're assigned to drive a bus. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. How many people died today who wouldn't have if we'd known what you could do? Zara felt that question land like a punch, because she'd been asking herself the same thing for 11 months. How many training hours wasted? How many skills atrophying? How many lives could she have saved if she'd been allowed to do what she'd trained to do? I follow orders, sir, she said quietly. I was told to drive the bus, so I drove the bus. Until today. Until people started dying. Ridge pulled up to the command center, killed the engine. He turned to face her. The assault team came for something specific. They hit the gate, moved with precision toward specific buildings. Initial reports suggest they were after classified documents in the intelligence office. He paused. They didn't get them. QRF pushed them back before they could breach. Partly because of your call redirecting them. Partly because you bought us time. Zara said nothing. You saved lives today, Lane. A lot of lives. Ridge opened his door, stepped out. But now we've got a problem. Because I can't put you back on that bus. Not after what I saw. Not after what everyone saw. Sir. And before you argue, understand that this isn't about you anymore. This is about accountability. This is about a Marine Corps that sidelined a highly trained operator for reasons that have nothing to do with capability. His jaw tightened. I'm not going to be part of that. Not on my base. He walked toward the command center. Zara followed, her mind racing. This was it. The moment where everything changed. Where the careful invisibility she'd maintained shattered, and she had to face whatever came next. They entered the building, moved through corridors filled with personnel scrambling to respond to the attack. Ridge led her to a conference room where several officers were already assembled, including a full Colonel Zara didn't recognize. Ridge saluted. Sir, this is Sergeant Zara Lane. She's the one I called about. The colonel looked at Zara, his expression unreadable. Sergeant, I'm Colonel Marcus Webb, base commander. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Zara sat. Her heart was pounding, but her face remained calm. Webb pulled out a tablet, scrolled through something. I've been reading your file. The parts I'm cleared to read anyway. He looked up. You want to tell me why a Scout Sniper School graduate with 3 combat deployments and multiple commendations is driving a charity bus? Here it was, the question she'd been avoiding, the truth she'd been hiding. Zara took a breath. Politics, sir. I filed complaints about harassment and discrimination. My immediate CO didn't appreciate it. Neither did his CO. They couldn't discharge me, my record was too clean. So they buried me instead. Administrative reassignment, non-combat role, stateside posting. She kept her voice even. They wanted me to quit, I didn't. Webb's expression darkened. Who was your CO? With respect, sir, I'd rather not say. That wasn't a request, Sergeant. Zara met his eyes. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Hendricks, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, sir. Webb's jaw tightened. He exchanged a glance with Ridge. Something passed between them. recognition, maybe anger. Hendricks was relieved of command 6 months ago. Multiple complaints. It's under investigation. Zara felt something shift in her chest. She'd filed her complaint over a year ago, watched it disappear into bureaucracy, assumed nothing would happen, assumed she'd been sacrificed for the greater good of unit cohesion and career preservation. "I didn't know that, sir," she said quietly. "You wouldn't. The investigation is classified." Webb set down the tablet. "But here's what's not classified. Today you saved lives. Multiple lives. You engaged enemy combatants and eliminated threats. You protected civilians and provided tactical intel that prevented further casualties." He leaned forward. "That's not bus driver work, Sergeant. That's exemplary Marine work." Zara didn't know what to say. After 11 months of being invisible, being seen was almost painful. Ridge spoke up. "Sir, I recommend Sergeant Lane be reassigned to base security operations. We need people with her skill set, especially after today." "Agreed," Webb said, "but there's more." He pulled up something on his tablet, turned it toward Zara. "The assault team today, we've identified them. They're part of a larger cell that's been targeting military installations up and down the East Coast. FBI and NCIS are involved. This isn't over." Zara looked at the screen. Photos of the attackers' intelligence reports, connection maps. Her mind automatically started analyzing patterns, vulnerabilities, next probable targets. "They'll come back," she said. "Different location, different approach, but they'll come back." "Why do you say that?" Webb asked. "Because they didn't get what they came for, and professional operators don't quit after one failed attempt." Zara pointed to one of the photos. "This man here, third from the left, he's former Iraqi army, probably Republican Guard based on his movement patterns. The others are a mix of backgrounds, but all military trained. This isn't ideology. This is business. Someone's paying them." Webb and Ridge exchanged another glance. "How do you know that?" Webb asked. "Because I've seen it before, sir." Zara's voice was steady. "Different country, different faces, same pattern. This is contracted work, which means they'll regroup, reassess, and try again until they succeed, or until someone stops them." The room went quiet. Finally, Webb spoke. "Sergeant Lane, how would you like to stop them?" Zara looked at him, uncertain what he meant. "I'm reassigning you effective immediately," Webb continued. "Base Security Operations Special Threat Response. Major Ridge will be your direct superior. Your primary mission: help us identify and neutralize this threat before they strike again." He paused. "You'll have full access to intelligence, tactical resources, and personnel. No more driving buses, no more being invisible. You'll be what you trained to be." It was everything Zara had wanted for 11 months. Everything she'd been denied. And now it was being offered freely, without caveat, without condition. She should have been thrilled, but all she felt was tired. "Sir, what about my record? The complaints, the reassignment?" "We'll deal with that," Webb said firmly. "Hendricks is facing consequences. Your record will be reviewed. But right now, Sergeant, I don't care about politics. I care about protecting this base and everyone on it. And you've proven you can do that." He stood. "So what's your answer?" Zara thought about the bus. About 11 months of patient smiles and careful invisibility. About being underestimated, overlooked, dismissed. Then she thought about Davies and Patricia and Tyler and all the others she'd pulled off that bus alive. About the 2 Marines pinned down who would be dead if she'd stayed hidden. About the people still in danger because the threat wasn't over. She stood. "Yes, sir, I accept." Webb nodded. "Good. Major Ridge will brief you on immediate priorities. Get cleaned up, get some food, and be ready to work. We've got a lot to do." He dismissed them. Ridge led Zara back out into the hallway. "You okay?" he asked. "Honestly, sir, I don't know yet." Ridge smiled slightly. "That's fair. Today's been a hell of a day." They walked in silence for a moment, then he said, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry it took an attack for people to see what you're capable of. Sorry you had to prove yourself this way." "It is what it is, sir." "No, it's not. It's broken, and we're going to fix it." Ridge stopped, turned to face her. "But first, we're going to stop these bastards from hurting anyone else. You with me?" Zara looked at him. Really looked and saw something she hadn't seen in a long time. a superior officer who actually gave a damn. "I'm with you, sir." "Then let's get to work." They walked through the command center together, Zara no longer invisible, no longer just the bus driver, no longer hiding what she was. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered if this was victory, or if this was just the beginning of something worse. The briefing room smelled like stale coffee and tension. Zara sat at a conference table surrounded by maps, satellite imagery, and classified documents she hadn't been cleared to see 12 hours ago. Ridge was on her left, poring over attack patterns. Lieutenant Parrish sat across from her, still looking like he couldn't quite believe the bus driver was now running tactical analysis. 17 minutes, Zara said, pointing to the timeline on the wall. That's how long they were inside the wire before QRF pushed them back. 17 minutes to breach, search 3 buildings, and extract. That's not searching. That's executing a rehearsed plan. Ridge looked up from his notes. They knew exactly what they wanted and where to find it. Which means they had inside information, Parrish added. Someone fed them intel on base layout, security protocols, shift changes. Zara traced her finger across the map, following the assault team's movement pattern. They hit the gate at 14:47 hours. Change of guard happens at 14:45. 2-minute window, when the new team is still getting oriented. Old team is already mentally checked out. That's not coincidence. "So we've got a leak," Ridge said. His jaw tightened. "Someone on this base is feeding intel to enemy combatants." The room went quiet. Nobody wanted to say what they were all thinking, that one of their own had betrayed them, had caused the deaths of 4 Marines and 2 civilian contractors. Zara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, text from Davies. Mrs. Chen was on the earlier route. "She's okay. Tyler wanted you to know." Relief hit her harder than she expected. She typed back a quick acknowledgement, then refocused on the map. Personal feelings later. Mission now. "We need to identify the leak," she said. "Start with anyone who had access to security protocols and gate schedules. Cross-reference with financial records, travel history, any flags." Parrish nodded, already taking notes. "That's going to be a long list. We're talking dozens of personnel." "Then we narrow it down," Ridge said. "Lane, what else do we know about the assault team?" Zara pulled up the photos on her tablet. 4 confirmed dead, 4 retreated. The dead ones had no identification, no phones, nothing traceable. But their weapons tell a story. She zoomed in on evidence photos. AK-47s, Bulgarian manufacture, less than 2 years old. These came through Eastern European arms dealers, probably routed through Syria or Iraq before entering the US. "How do you know Bulgarian manufacture?" Parrish asked. Zara pointed to markings on the rifle stock. "Serial pattern. I've seen these before. They're popular with private military contractors operating in conflict zones." She switched to another photo. "And this?" She indicated a vest one of the dead attackers wore. "This is custom tactical gear. Not military issue, not commercial. Custom made probably by the same outfitter that supplies Blackwater-type operations." Ridge leaned forward. "You're saying these guys were professional contractors?" "I'm saying someone with serious money hired professionals to hit this base." Zara met his eyes. "The question is what they were after that's worth this level of investment." Before anyone could answer, the door opened. Colonel Webb entered with 2 people Zara didn't recognize, a woman in a dark suit and a man in khakis and a polo shirt. Federal agents, she guessed. FBI or NCIS. "Major Sergeant Lane," Webb said. "This is Special Agent Carmen Vega, FBI, and Special Agent Tom Brennan, NCIS. They're taking lead on the investigation." Vega stepped forward, offered her hand to Ridge, then to Zara. She was mid-40s, Latina, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Major Ridge, we've heard about your tactical response today. Well done." She turned to Zara. "Sergeant Lane, you're the one who engaged the assault team." "Yes, ma'am." 4 confirmed kills. Impressive shooting. Vega's tone was neutral, professional. "I've read your file. The unredacted parts anyway. Scout Sniper School, top 5% of your class. 3 deployments, multiple commendations. Then suddenly you're driving a bus." She paused. "That's an interesting career trajectory." Zara kept her expression neutral. "I go where I'm assigned, ma'am." "I'm sure you do." Vega pulled out her own tablet, brought up something. We've been tracking this particular cell for 6 months. They've hit 3 installations, one in Georgia, one in North Carolina, now here. Each time they're after classified intelligence. Documents, hard drives, anything that relates to Middle Eastern operations. Brennan spoke up. We believe they're working for a foreign intelligence service. Possibly Iranian, possibly Iraqi, possibly a non-state actor with deep pockets. They're collecting information that could compromise ongoing operations and endanger personnel in theater. Did they get anything today? Ridge asked. No, Webb said firmly. Thanks to Sergeant Lane's call redirecting QRF, we pushed them back before they could breach the intelligence office. But they came damn close. Vega studied Zara with those sharp eyes. Sergeant, you said on the phone, you knew they were heading for the command center. How did you know that? Here it was. The question that would either establish her credibility or make them think she was part of the problem. Zara chose her words carefully. I watched their movement pattern. They weren't causing chaos, they were moving with purpose towards specific objectives. Military training teaches you to think like your enemy. If I wanted classified intel from this base, I'd hit the command center first, then the intelligence office, then communications. Disrupt command and control, grab what you came for, destroy the means to call for help. She paused. They hit the gate because that was the fastest entry point. But their objective was always deeper inside. Vega exchanged a glance with Brennan. Something passed between them that Zara couldn't read. You think like an operator, Vega said finally. I am an operator, ma'am. I just haven't been operating. Vega's expression shifted slightly, not quite a smile, but something close. Well, you're operating now. Colonel Webb wants you working with us on this investigation. You have tactical expertise we need, and you've seen these guys in action. She pulled up a photo on her tablet, showed it to Zara. Do you recognize this man? Zara looked at the photo. Middle-aged Middle Eastern features, well-dressed. Something about the eyes seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. No, ma'am. Should I? His name is Karim al-Rashid, former Iraqi intelligence Republican Guard. After the fall of Baghdad, he went private, started selling his services to the highest bidder. We think he's the one coordinating these attacks. Vega swiped to another photo. And this is his second-in-command, Dmitry Volkov, former Russian Spetsnaz, currently wanted in 3 countries for various war crimes. Zara studied Volkov's face. Slavic features, cold eyes, the kind of man who'd kill you and forget your name before your body hit the ground. These aren't small-time players. No, they're not, Brennan said, which is why we need to find them before they hit another installation, and we think you can help us do that. Ridge spoke up. How? Vega looked at Zara. Because Sergeant Lane thinks like they think. She's been in the field, she's run operations, she knows how contractors plan and execute. We need someone who can get inside their heads and figure out their next move. Zara felt the weight of their expectations settle on her shoulders. This was it, the moment where she either proved herself or failed spectacularly. No middle ground. What do you need from me? She asked. Everything, Vega said. We need you to analyze every detail of today's attack. Movement patterns, weapons, tactics, timing. We need you to tell us what you would do next if you were al-Rashid, where you'd hit, when, how. And we need you to help us set a trap. A trap? Zara repeated. We let them think they succeeded today, Brennan explained. We leak false information through channels we suspect are compromised. Make them believe we're vulnerable, that the next installation on their list is an easy target. Then we wait for them to take the bait. Ridge shook his head. You're talking about using a military installation as bait, personnel at risk. We're talking about ending this threat before more people die, Vega countered. And we minimize risk by controlling every variable. We choose the location, we set the rules of engagement. We have overwhelming force ready to respond. She looked at Zara. But we need someone who understands how they operate. Someone who can think 10 steps ahead. Someone like Sergeant Lane. Zara felt everyone's eyes on her. This was beyond driving a bus, beyond even today's firefight. This was operational planning at the highest level, with lives on the line and failure not an option. I'll do it, she said. But I need full access to everything you have on al-Rashid and his team. Every operation, every known associate, every financial transaction. I can't predict his next move if I don't understand his pattern. Done, Vega said immediately. You'll have it within the hour. Brennan will be your liaison. Anything you need, you go through him. Brennan nodded. I'll get you set up with secure access. We've got a workstation ready in Building 8. Webb stood. Then let's get moving. We don't know when they'll strike again, but we can assume it's soon. They lost 4 people today. They'll want revenge and they'll want to prove they can still execute their mission. He looked at Zara. Sergeant, you're dismissed to begin your analysis. Major Ridge, coordinate with Agents Vega and Brennan on security protocols. Lieutenant Parrish, I want a full review of anyone with access to classified systems. We find that leak, we plug it. Clear. Clear, sir, they all said in unison. The briefing broke up. As people filed out, Vega caught Zara's arm. Sergeant, a word. They stepped into the hallway away from the others. Vega's professional demeanor softened slightly. I read your full file, she said quietly. I have clearance for the redacted sections. I know what happened with Hendricks. I know why you ended up driving that bus. Zara tensed. Ma'am, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to tell you that you got screwed. You filed a legitimate complaint and you paid the price for it. That's wrong. And for what it's worth, I'm glad Webb is giving you a chance to show what you can really do. Vega paused. But I need to know, are you okay? Today was intense. You killed 4 people. You went from bus driver to active combat in about 30 seconds. That's a hell of a psychological shift. Zara considered lying, giving the expected answer. But something about Vega's directness made her tell the truth instead. Honestly, ma'am, I don't know if I'm okay. I did what I had to do, but I haven't processed it yet. Haven't had time. Make time, Vega said firmly. Because if you break down in the middle of this operation, people die. And I can't have that. So if you need to talk to someone, if you need to take a minute, you tell me. Don't be a hero about mental health. That's how heroes end up dead. Yes, ma'am. Vega studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. Good. Now go catch us some bad guys. 2 hours later, Zara sat in front of 3 monitors in a secure workstation surrounded by files she'd only dreamed of accessing during her 11 months of invisibility. Personnel files on Al-Rashid and Volkov. Attack reports from the previous installations. Financial records showing money flowing through shell corporations. Surveillance footage from a dozen different sources. She'd changed clothes, traded the blood-stained gray V-neck for a clean black tactical shirt someone had found for her. Her dark brown curls were still pulled back tight, baby hairs escaping around her temples. She'd showered quickly, scrubbed the smoke and cordite smell from her skin, tried to wash away the weight of 4 kills that sat in her chest like stones. 4 men dead by her hand. She'd killed before in combat zones in circumstances where it was them or you, where the enemy wore uniforms or carried flags that made them clearly identifiable as threats. But today had been different. Today had been on U.S. soil at a stateside base in front of civilians and Marines who thought she was just a bus driver. Today had ripped away every pretense and left her standing naked in front of the truth. She was good at killing people. The thought made her stomach turn. So she pushed it away, focused on the screens, let the work bury the emotion the way she'd been trained to do. Brennan brought her coffee, black strong, exactly what she needed. How's it going? Slowly, Zara admitted. Al-Rashid is careful. He doesn't leave obvious patterns, but everyone has patterns if you look close enough. She pulled up a timeline of the 3 attacks. Georgia installation, March 15th. North Carolina, July 2nd. Today, November 4th. What do you see? Brennan studied the dates. Irregular intervals, not monthly, not based on any obvious calendar. Look closer, Zara said. She pulled up additional information. Georgia attack was 2 days after a troop deployment to the Middle East. North Carolina was 1 day after a drone strike in Iraq that killed 3 suspected insurgents. Today, she pulled up news reports, was 3 days after a major arms deal was announced between the U.S. and Kurdish forces. He's retaliating, Brennan said, understanding dawning. Every attack is a response to U.S. military action in the Middle East. Not just retaliating, sending a message. Zara zoomed in on attack details. And look at what he targeted each time. In Georgia, personnel files on interpreters and local collaborators. In North Carolina, drone operation protocols. Today, classified intel on ongoing operations. He's not just stealing information, he's gathering everything he needs to compromise U.S. operations from the inside out. Jesus, Brennan muttered. If he gets that information back to hostile actors. People die, Zara finished. Interpreters get hunted down. Safe houses get compromised. Operations get blown before they start. He's not trying to win a battle, he's trying to dismantle the entire network. Brennan pulled out his phone, started typing rapidly. I need to brief Vega on this. This changes the threat assessment. Wait, Zara said. She pulled up another file, something that had been nagging at her since she'd started the analysis. There's more. Look at the timing of each attack. Not the dates, but the actual time of day. Georgia was 1430 hours. North Carolina was 1445 hours. Today was 1447 hours. Afternoon shift change, Brennan said. Exactly. But it's more specific than that. Zara pulled up duty rosters from all three installations. Each attack happened during a very specific window when security is at its most vulnerable. Not just shift change, but when the outgoing team has already logged out of systems and the incoming team hasn't logged in yet. There's a gap about 8 minutes where no one is actively monitoring certain security protocols. Brennan stared at the screen. How would he know that that's not public information? That's not even something most people on base would know. Because someone told him, Zara said quietly. Someone with detailed knowledge of security procedures across multiple installations. Someone with high-level access. You're saying the leak isn't just some disgruntled corporal selling information for cash. I'm saying the leak is someone with rank, someone with clearances, someone who's been planning this for a long time. Zara met his eyes. We're not looking for a leak. We're looking for a traitor. Brennan's face went pale. I need to call Vega, right now. He stepped out, leaving Zara alone with the monitors and the growing certainty that this was bigger than anyone had realized. A coordinated campaign spanning months, targeting multiple installations requiring inside information that only a handful of people would have access to. Someone had sold out their brothers and sisters in arms. Someone had traded lives for money or ideology or whatever twisted motivation made betrayal seem reasonable. Zara felt rage building in her chest, hot, clean rage that made her hands shake. She'd lost her career fighting against corruption and harassment. She'd been buried in a bus driver assignment because she'd dared to speak truth to power. And now someone with actual power was using it to betray everyone who'd ever put on a uniform. Her phone buzzed. Text from Davies. Heard you're working with the feds now. Still time for that beer? Or are you too important to drink with us regular people? Despite everything, Zara smiled. She typed back, never too important for that. Rain check still stands. Good. Because everyone here wants to buy you a drink. You're a legend now. The bus driver who fought like a seal. Zara's smile faded. Legend. That's what they were calling her. Not traitor, not troublemaker, not the woman who'd filed complaints that got buried. Now she was a legend, because she'd killed people who needed killing. It should have felt like vindication. Instead, it just felt heavy. Brennan came back in Vega right behind him. Vega's expression was grim. Tell me again about this traitor theory, she said without preamble. Zara walked her through the analysis timing information, specificity, the level of detail required to coordinate 3 successful infiltrations. Vega listened without interrupting, her sharp eyes tracking every piece of evidence. When Zara finished, Vega was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, shit. That's one way to put it, Brennan muttered. If you're right, and I think you are, this means someone in a position of significant authority is actively working against us. Vega started pacing. Someone with access to security protocols across multiple installations. That's a very short list of people. How short? Zara asked. Maybe 20 people in the entire Eastern Seaboard command structure. Vega stopped pacing, turned to face them. And most of them are senior officers with decades of service and spotless records. Accusing one of them without ironclad proof will end careers, mine included. So what do we do? Brennan asked. Zara spoke before Vega could. We set the trap like you planned, but we control the information flow. We identify the suspects, Then we feed each one slightly different intelligence. When Al-Rashid shows up, we'll know which version of the intel he has. That tells us who the traitor is. Vega's eyes widened slightly. That's a canary trap. Classic counterintelligence technique. It's also risky, Brennan said. If the traitor figures out what we're doing, they'll go dark. We'll lose our chance. Then we don't give them time to figure it out, Zara countered. We move fast. Feed the information, set the trap, execute within 48 hours. No time for the traitor to second guess or warn Al-Rashid. Vega considered this, weighing risks against potential gains. Finally, she nodded. Okay, we do it. But we need buy-in from the highest levels. I'll need to brief the director and get approval for a sting operation of this magnitude. She looked at Zara. Can you have a full operational plan ready by tomorrow morning? Yes, ma'am. Then get it done. Brennan will assist. I want every detail mapped out: location, personnel, rules of engagement, contingencies. If we're going to catch a traitor and stop Al-Rashid, we only get one shot at this. She left. Brennan turned to Zara, whistled low. You just committed us to designing a multi-million-dollar sting operation in less than 12 hours. You know that, right? Yeah, Zara said, already pulling up maps and facility layouts. Better get started. They worked through the night. Coffee turned to energy drinks, turned to more coffee. Zara's eyes burned from staring at screens. Her back ached from sitting in one position too long, but her mind was sharp-focused, running through scenarios the way she used to run through combat situations before missions. She chose the location, a small reserve facility in coastal Virginia, isolated enough to control the battlefield, but valuable enough to be a credible target. She mapped out defensive positions, sniper nests, extraction routes. She identified exactly how many personnel they'd need and where to position them for maximum effectiveness while minimizing visibility. Brennan handled the intelligence side, crafting 5 different versions of the false information, each with subtle variations that would identify the source once Al-Rashid acted on it. Names changed, dates shifted by a day unit, designations slightly altered. A forensic accountant would need to compare them side by side to spot the differences, but those differences would be enough to condemn a traitor. At 0400 hours, Ridge found them still working. He carried fresh coffee and looked like he'd aged 10 years in 12 hours. You two need sleep, he said. Sleep when we're dead, Zara muttered, not looking up from her screen. Or when we catch these bastards, whichever comes first. Ridge set the coffee down, studied what they'd built. This is good work, really good. But Lane... He waited until she looked at him. When was the last time you ate something that wasn't caffeine? Zara blinked, tried to remember, failed. That's what I thought. Ridge pulled out his phone, ordered food from the base DFAC. You can't run on empty. Trust me, I've tried. It doesn't end well. Sir, we're on a timeline. And you'll miss that timeline if you collapse from exhaustion. His voice was firm, but not unkind. 30 minutes. Eat, stretch, clear your head. Then back to work. That's an order. Zara wanted to argue, but her body was screaming at her hunger fatigue, the accumulated stress of a day that had started with driving a bus and ended with planning a counter-terrorism operation. She nodded. 30 minutes, she agreed. The food arrived, eggs, toast, fruit that actually tasted fresh. Zara ate mechanically, fueling the machine, while Ridge and Brennan discussed logistics. Her mind drifted, exhaustion creeping in around the edges. She thought about Mrs. Chen and Tyler, safe now, but traumatized. She thought about the 2 Marines she'd saved, whose names she still didn't know. She thought about the 4 men she'd killed, wondered if they had families, if they'd believed in the cause they were fighting for, or if they were just mercenaries chasing money. Then she thought about her father, who died believing service meant something, who'd given everything for a country that had buried his daughter in a bus driver assignment when she got too uppity about being harassed. Lane, Ridge's voice pulled her back. You okay? Yeah, she lied. Just tired. It's more than tired. Ridge leaned back in his chair, studied her with those observant eyes. Today you went from invisible to indispensable in about 6 hours. That's a hell of a transition. Nobody would blame you if you needed a minute to process. I don't have time to process. Make time, Ridge said, echoing Vega's earlier words. Because tomorrow we execute this operation, and it's going to be intense. If you're not mentally solid, people could die. Zara set down her fork, met his eyes. I killed 4 people today, sir. 4 human beings. And everyone's treating me like a hero for it. Like I did something to celebrate. She paused. I'm not celebrating. I'm just trying not to think about it until this is over. Ridge nodded slowly. That's fair. But when this is over, and it will be over one way or another, you're going to talk to someone. Professional, confidential, no judgment. Because carrying that weight alone will destroy you. I've seen it happen. Yes, sir. I mean it, Lane. That's not a suggestion. I understand, sir. Brennan cleared his throat, breaking the tension. Operational plan is 90% complete. Just need final approval on rules of engagement and we're ready to brief. Ridge checked his watch. Brief is at 0800. That gives us 4 hours to finalize everything and get approvals from the colonel and the federal agents. He looked at Zara and Brennan. Can you have it ready? Yes, sir, they said together. Then finish it. I'll be back at 0730 to review before the brief. He left them to it. Zara drained her coffee, felt the caffeine hit her system, and dove back into the operational plan. 4 more hours. She could last 4 more hours. She had to. Because somewhere out there, Al-Rashid and his remaining team were planning their next move. And somewhere on a U.S. military base, a traitor was feeding them information that would get people killed. Zara Lane had spent 11 months being invisible. Now she was going to make damn sure everyone saw what happened to people who betrayed their own. At 0745 hours, Zara stood in front of a room full of people who could end her career with a single word. Colonel Webb sat at the head of the table, flanked by Vega and Brennan. Major Ridge was on her right, and 5 other senior officers she'd never met filled the remaining seats. Every face was skeptical, waiting for her to prove she belonged in this room instead of behind the wheel of a bus. She clicked to the first slide of her presentation, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion threatening to drag her under. Operation Iron Gate. Our objective is to neutralize the Al-Rashid cell and identify the traitor, providing them intelligence. She clicked to the next slide, showing the target facility. We've selected Reserve Station Echo 7, Coastal Virginia. Small facility, minimal permanent staff, currently housing maintenance equipment and low-priority supplies. But we're going to make Al-Rashid believe it's storing classified intelligence on Middle Eastern assets. One of the senior officers, a lieutenant colonel named Marks, spoke up. Why would he believe that Echo 7 is a maintenance depot? Because the traitor is going to tell him otherwise, Zara said. She clicked to the next slide, showing the canary trap structure. We've created 5 versions of the same false intelligence report. Each version identifies Echo 7 as the storage location for classified materials, but each contains unique identifying markers, different dates, different unit designations, different personnel names. We feed each version to a different suspect. When Al-Rashid attacks the intelligence he acts on, will tell us exactly who gave it to him. Vega leaned forward. We've narrowed the suspect list to 5 officers with appropriate clearance levels and access to security protocols. All 5 will receive their version of the intel within the next 6 hours, each through channels they regularly use for classified communication. That's a lot of variables, Mark said. What if Al-Rashid doesn't take the bait? He will, Zara said with certainty. His pattern shows escalation. After today's failure, he needs a win to maintain credibility with whoever's funding him. And Echo 7 presents what looks like an easy target, isolated location. Minimal security. High-value intelligence. From his perspective, it's perfect. Webb spoke for the first time. Timeline. We feed the intelligence starting at 1200 hours today. Based on Al-Rashid's previous response times, we expect an attack attempt within 24 to 48 hours. We'll have the facility fully secured and personnel in position by 1800 hours. Zara clicked to the tactical overview. Defensive positions here, and here. Sniper teams on these roof lines. QRF stage 2 clicks out, ready to respond within 3 minutes. We control every variable. Every variable except human error, Marks countered. You're betting on a lot of people doing exactly what you predict. What happens when they don't? Then we adapt, Ridge said firmly. But Sergeant Lane's analysis has been spot on so far. I trust her assessment. Marks looked at Zara, his expression unreadable. You were driving a bus yesterday morning. Now you're running counterintelligence operations. That's quite a leap. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what he was really asking. Who are you to be doing this? Zara met his eyes, kept her voice level. Yesterday morning I was doing what I was ordered to do. Today I'm doing what needs to be done. The skill set hasn't changed, sir. Just the application. The skill set of a scout sniper who was sidelined for political reasons, Vega interjected smoothly. Reasons that are currently under investigation. Reasons that had nothing to do with Sergeant Lane's capabilities and everything to do with leadership failure. She looked at Marks. I've seen her personnel file, all of it. She's more than qualified for this operation. Marks held Vega's gaze for a moment, then nodded. Fair enough. Webb stood. If there are no further objections, we proceed. Sergeant Lane, you'll coordinate tactical deployment with Major Ridge. Agents Vega and Brennan, you handle the intelligence distribution and suspect monitoring. Everyone else you're on standby to support as needed. Questions? No one spoke. Then let's move. We have 12 hours to set this trap. Don't waste them. The briefing broke up. As people filed out, Ridge caught Zara's arm. That was well done, he said quietly. But Marks is right about one thing. There are a lot of variables. If something goes wrong, then we make it right. Zara interrupted. That's what we do, sir. We adapt and overcome. Spoken like a true Marine, Ridge smiled slightly. Come on, we've got personnel to brief and positions to assign, and you need to at least pretend to rest before tonight. I'll rest when Al-Rashid is in custody. That's what I'm afraid of. By 1400 hours, the 5 versions of the false intelligence had been distributed through secure channels to the 5 suspects. Vega had surveillance teams monitoring each one, tracking their communications, their movements, any sign they were passing information to Al-Rashid. Zara was in a Humvee with Ridge heading toward Echo 7 to oversee the tactical setup. The facility sat 30 miles from Norfolk, accessible by a single 2-lane road that wound through marshland and pine forest. Isolated. Defensible. Perfect for an ambush, if you knew it was coming. Tell me about the suspects, Zara said as they drove. Ridge pulled up files on his tablet. Suspect 1, Colonel Marcus Webb. Zara's head snapped toward him. Webb, the base commander. Everyone's a suspect until proven otherwise. Webb has the access, the clearances, and he was at all 3 installations before the attacks. But his service record is impeccable, 30 years. Multiple combat tours, family man with 3 kids in college. Ridge scrolled down. Suspect 2, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chen. Logistics officer, 12 years of service, recently passed over for promotion twice. Could be a motive there. Mrs. Chen's daughter, Zara murmured, remembering the elderly woman who brought cookies every week. Related, Ridge asked. Possibly. Continue. Suspect 3, Major Dennis Torres. Intelligence officer, access to all classified systems, but he's also the one who's been most vocal about security improvements. Seems unlikely he'd sabotage what he's trying to fix. Ridge moved to the next file. Suspect 4, Captain Robert Morrison. Communications officer, Wait Morrison. Zara tensed. Related to the trainee who grabbed me yesterday. Ridge checked the file. His father. And according to this, Captain Morrison filed a complaint 2 days ago about his son being assaulted by a female bus driver, his son being you. Perfect, Zara muttered. A suspect with a personal grudge against her. This was getting more complicated by the minute. Suspect 5, Master Sergeant Luis Rodriguez. 22 years of service, exemplary record, but recent financial troubles. Divorced last year, child support payments, possible gambling debts. Ridge closed the tablet. 5 people, 5 motives, 5 opportunities, 1 traitor. We'll know which one soon enough, Zara said, though the thought of Webb being compromised made her stomach turn. The man had stood up for her, given her a chance when no one else would. If he was the traitor, It would mean everything she'd started to believe in again was built on lies. They arrived at Echo 7 at 14:30 hours. The facility was exactly as described, small utilitarian surrounded by chain-link fence and overgrown grass. A handful of buildings clustered together, most of them storage structures or maintenance shops. A skeleton crew of 3 Marines maintained the site, all of whom were being evacuated and replaced by the operational team. Zara stepped out of the Humvee, immediately scanning the terrain with tactical eyes. Flat approaches from the east and west marsh on the north side that would slow vehicle movement, forest on the south, providing cover for infiltration. The access road was the obvious entry point, but professionals would spot the obvious trap and look for alternatives. "Ridge," she said, pointing to the south. "They'll come through the trees. Probably split their force, half creating a diversion at the gate, half infiltrating from the rear." Agreed. Ridge was already on his radio directing teams to adjust their positions. "But we need to make it look like we're not expecting them. Too much visible security and they'll abort." Zara walked the perimeter, counting steps, measuring angles, calculating fields of fire. This was what she'd trained for, turning terrain into advantage, reading the ground the way other people read books. Every piece of cover, every line of sight, every choke point was a tool she could use. By 1800 hours, the trap was set. Sniper teams hidden in the tree-lined infantry positions, concealed inside buildings that looked abandoned but were actually fortified, QRF staged at a nearby road junction ready to respond. To any external observer, Echo 7 looked exactly like what it was supposed to be, a sleepy reserve facility with minimal security and maximum vulnerability. Zara took position in the main command building, with Ridge surrounded by monitors showing feeds from hidden cameras throughout the facility. Vega and Brennan were in a mobile command center 2 clicks away, coordinating with the surveillance teams watching the suspects. Now they waited. Waiting was the hardest part. Harder than running, harder than shooting, harder than any physical challenge. Waiting meant sitting with your thoughts, with your doubts, with the knowledge that people might die based on decisions you made. Zara's phone buzzed. Text from Davies. "Heard you're running some kind of special op. Be careful out there. Some of us still need you to buy us that beer." She typed back. "Rain check still stands. This'll be over soon." She hoped that was true. At 21:30 hours, Brennan's voice crackled over the radio. "We have movement. Suspect 4 Captain Morrison. He just left the base in civilian clothes heading west. Mobile surveillance is following." Zara and Ridge exchanged glances. Morrison, the man whose son had grabbed her in the gym, who'd filed a complaint against her. If he was the traitor, it meant his vendetta ran deeper than a simple family dispute. "Stay on him," Vega ordered over the channel. "But don't spook him. We need to see where he goes and who he contacts." 40 minutes passed. Zara watched the monitors, watched the empty facility, watched the darkness beyond the fence line. Her nerves were steady, but her mind was racing, playing out scenarios, preparing for contingencies. Then Brennan's voice again, urgent now. "Morrison just met with an unknown individual at a gas station parking lot. They're talking. Can't get audio from this distance. Wait. Morrison's passing something. Envelope. Looks like documents." "Can you identify the individual?" Ridge asked. "Negative, too dark. But he's military age, fit, possibly Middle Eastern features. He's getting into a vehicle, black SUV, no plates visible. They're splitting up. Morrison heading back toward base. SUV heading south." "Follow the SUV," Vega ordered. "Stay on it. I want to know where it goes." Zara's pulse quickened. This was it. Morrison was the traitor, and he'd just passed the false intelligence to al-Rashid's contact, which meant they knew exactly which version of the intel the assault team would be acting on, which meant they could prepare for exactly what was coming. "Ridge," she said quietly. Morrison's version identified Echo 7 as housing intelligence on Afghan interpreters. That was his unique marker. Ridge pulled up the operational file, cross-referenced with Morrison's intelligence packet. Confirmed. So al-Rashid now believes this facility has information on Afghan assets. How does that change his approach? Zara thought about it, ran through al-Rashid's previous patterns. Afghan interpreter intelligence means names, addresses, family connections. High value for Taliban or other groups wanting to target collaborators. He'll want those files intact, no explosives that might destroy data, no heavy weapons that could damage servers. This will be a precision raid. Get in, secure the building, extract the intelligence, get out. So infantry assault, minimal explosives. Exactly. Which means they'll need more people on the ground. Yesterday's team was 8 strong and 4 are dead. If he's planning an extraction operation, he'll need at least 6, probably 8 to replace losses and provide adequate security. Zara moved to the tactical map. They'll come in 2 vehicles, split deployment half to breach the gate and suppress any response, half to assault the command building where they think the intelligence is stored. Ridge was already adjusting the defensive plan, moving personnel to counter the expected approach. If we're wrong, we're not wrong, Zara said with certainty she mostly felt. This is how I do it. This is how any professional would do it. At 20:45 hours, Brennan reported back. SUV stopped at a motel outside Newport News. Individual went into room 217, hasn't come out. We've got the location lockdown surveillance in place. That's their staging area, Zara said immediately. Close enough to Echo 7 for a quick strike, far enough away to avoid attention. They're probably assembling the team now, doing final preparations. How long until they move? Ridge asked. Zara checked the time, calculated based on previous attack patterns. If they follow their established timeline, they'll want to hit between 0300 and 0400. Early morning, when fatigue degrades security awareness. That gives them 6 hours to plan and stage. We'll be ready, Ridge said. He keyed his radio. All positions, this is actual. Expect enemy contact between 0300 and 400. Rules of engagement are weapons free only on confirmed hostile action. We want prisoners if possible. Repeat, prisoners if possible. We need them alive to testify against the traitor. Confirmations came back from all positions. Everyone was set. Everyone was ready. Now they just had to wait. Zara used the time to walk the facility one more time, checking positions, talking to the Marines who'd volunteered for this operation. Most of them were young, some fresh out of combat training, all of them looking at her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. One private, couldn't have been more than 20, stopped her as she passed. Sergeant Lane, I just wanted to say what you did yesterday was incredible. You saved a lot of lives. Zara paused, studied his young face. What's your name, Private? Jackson, ma'am. Private First Class Marcus Jackson. You scared Jackson. He hesitated, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. Never been in a real firefight before. Good, Zara said. Scared means you're smart enough to understand the stakes. But here's what you need to know, you're not alone. Every person here has your back. When it starts, you trust your training, you trust your team, and you do your job. Fear doesn't go away. You just learn to work through it. How do you do it? Jackson asked. How do you stay so calm? Zara thought about all the ways she wanted to answer that question. About the nightmares she still had from deployments she couldn't talk about. About the weight of kills that never quite left her shoulders. About the 11 months she'd spent driving a bus trying to pretend she was someone different. Instead, she said, I focus on the mission. I focus on bringing everyone home. Everything else is noise. Jackson nodded slowly, straightened his posture. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Zara moved on, continued her rounds. At each position, she found Marines preparing in their own ways, some praying, some checking weapons for the 10th time, some making dark jokes that covered genuine fear, all of them doing what soldiers have always done before battle, trying to find courage in the darkness. At 0100 hours, Zara was back in the command building, staring at monitors that showed nothing but empty night. Ridge was beside her, drinking coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. You ever wonder if we're making the right call? He asked quietly. Every minute, Zara admitted. But wondering doesn't change what needs to be done. You sound like you've done this before. Parts of it. She kept her eyes on the screens. Different circumstances, same stakes. The redacted parts of your file. It wasn't a question. Zara didn't answer anyway. At 0237 hours, the perimeter cameras caught movement. 2 vehicles approaching slowly on the access road, headlights off, barely visible in the darkness. Contact, Ridge said calmly into the radio. 2 vehicles approaching from the south. All positions stand by. Zara watched the monitors counting. The vehicles stopped half a click from the facility. Doors opened. Figures emerged. She counted 8, all armed, all moving with tactical precision. 8 hostiles confirmed, she reported. They're staging for the assault. The assault team split exactly as she'd predicted, 4 moving toward the main gate, 4 flanking through the tree line toward the command building. They moved well using cover, communicating with hand signals, maintaining spacing. These weren't amateurs, but they were walking into a trap designed by someone who knew exactly how professionals operated. The 4 at the gate planted explosives, small charges carefully placed to blow the lock without causing excessive noise or damage. Smart. The other 4 reached the outer perimeter of the command building, began their infiltration. "All positions hold fire," Ridge ordered. "Let them commit. Let them breach." It went against every instinct Zara had, watching enemy combatants advance, doing nothing to stop them. But catching them in the act was the only way to prove Morrison's betrayal. They needed the assault team inside. They needed them caught red-handed, attempting to steal intelligence they thought was there. The gate charges detonated with a muffled thump. The 4-person team moved through immediately, weapons up, scanning for resistance. They advanced toward the motor pool building, where the false intelligence was supposedly stored. The other 4 reached the command building. One started working on the door lock while the others provided security. "They're at our door," Ridge muttered. "This better work, Lane." "It will," Zara said, though her heart was hammering. Everything depended on timing. Too soon, and the case against Morrison fell apart. Too late, and they'd lose the element of surprise. The door lock clicked. The assault team prepared to enter the building where Zara and Ridge were currently positioned. "Now?" Ridge asked, hand on his radio. Zara watched the monitors, counted heartbeats. "Not yet." The door opened. The first hostile entered, rifle up, sweeping left. The second followed, sweeping right. "Now," Zara said. Ridge keyed the radio. "All positions execute. Execute. Execute." The facility exploded into light and sound. Floodlights hit from every angle, temporarily blinding the assault team. Marines emerged from concealment, weapons trained, shouting commands. "U.S. Marines, drop your weapons on the ground. Now." For a moment, everything hung in balance. The assault team could surrender or they could fight. They chose to fight. Gunfire erupted. The 2 hostiles inside the command building spun toward Zara, and Ridge weapons coming up. Zara was already moving, diving behind cover, as rounds chewed through the doorframe where she'd been standing. Ridge returned fire-controlled bursts, driving them back. Outside, the other 6 were engaged with the Marines in a fierce firefight. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like lightning. The sound was deafening. Automatic weapons shouted orders, the distinctive crack of sniper fire from the tree line. Zara came up from cover, saw one of the hostiles advancing toward their position. She lined up the shot, squeezed the trigger. He dropped. The second hostile fired wild rounds, impacting the wall beside her head. She shifted, acquired the target, fired twice. He went down. "Clear," she shouted to Ridge. "Moving." Ridge advanced through the door, cleared the immediate area. Outside, the firefight was intensifying. The assault team was pinned, but fighting hard, trying to break contact and escape. Zara moved to the window, assessed the tactical situation. 3 hostiles down, 5 still fighting. The Marines had superior numbers and position, but the assault team had desperation and skill. One of the hostiles broke from cover, made a run for the vehicles. A sniper round dropped him before he made 10 meters. 4 left. Then Zara saw him through the smoke and chaos. She saw Kareem al-Rashid. Older than his photos, gray in his beard, but the same cold eyes. He was directing the retreat, calling orders, trying to salvage his team from the trap they'd walked into. "Al-Rashid is here," Zara reported. "Southeast corner near the fence line." "We need him alive," Ridge reminded her. "I know." But every instinct she had was screaming to take the shot, to end him, to stop him permanently. She forced herself to hold fire. The remaining assault team members were throwing smoke grenades, creating cover for their retreat. It was working. The Marines' visual advantage was degrading, and in the confusion, al-Rashid and 2 others were moving toward the vehicles. "They're escaping," Zara said urgently. "QRF is inbound," Ridge reported. 30 seconds. 30 seconds was too long. They'd be gone. Zara made a decision. She ran. Out the door, across open ground, using the smoke for cover the same way the assault team was using it. She heard Ridge shouting behind her but didn't stop. Al-Rashid was 20 meters away, almost to the first vehicle. 15 meters. She emerged from the smoke rifle up. 10 meters. Al-Rashid saw her spun, raised his weapon. 5 meters. Zara dove-rolled, came up inside his reach. She swept his rifle aside with one hand, drove her elbow into his face with the other. He staggered back. She followed, hit him twice more short, brutal strikes targeting nerve clusters. He went down. One of his team members turned toward her, weapon rising. Before he could fire, a rifle cracked from behind her and he dropped. She glanced back, saw Davies of all people standing there with a rifle, having somehow joined the operation without her knowing. "Told you I had your back," he said. No time to ask how or why. The last remaining hostile was running toward the tree line. Zara let him go. They had Al-Rashid, that's what mattered. She zip-tied Al-Rashid's hands, checked him for weapons, pulled him to his feet. His face was bloody from her strikes, one eye already swelling shut. He looked at her with something between hatred and respect. "You," he said in accented English. "The bus driver." "Sergeant," Zara corrected. "And you're under arrest." QRF arrived in a thunder of vehicles and armed Marines. The remaining hostile was captured trying to escape through the marsh. The facility was secured. 7 hostiles dead, 2 captured alive including Al-Rashid. 0 friendly casualties. Vega and Brennan arrived moments later. Vega looked at Al-Rashid, then at Zara, then smiled grimly. "Nice work, Sergeant. And we've got Morrison in custody." Surveillance team grabbed him trying to flee the base. She walked up to Al-Rashid, showed him a photo on her phone. "This is Captain Robert Morrison. Your contact, your source, your traitor. And he just gave you up to save himself. Funny how loyalty works when people are facing life in prison." Al-Rashid's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Defeat, maybe, or just resignation. "Take him," Vega ordered. Federal agents moved in, pulled Al-Rashid toward a waiting vehicle. As they led him away, he looked back at Zara one more time. "You fight well, bus driver. In another life, we might have been soldiers together." "In another life," Zara said quietly, "you wouldn't be a traitor to people who trusted you." He laughed, bitter harsh. "Trust! What a foolish thing to trade lives for!" Then he was gone, and Zara was left standing in the aftermath, surrounded by shell casings and smoke, with the weight of 7 more deaths added to the ones she already carried. Ridge approached, put a hand on her shoulder. "You good?" "Yeah," she said, though she wasn't sure that was true. "We got him. That's what matters." "That's what matters," Ridge agreed. "But Lane, when I said hold position, I meant hold position. You ran into an active firefight without backup." "Davies had my back." "Davies was supposed to be with the medical team, not carrying a rifle. I'm going to have words with him." But Ridge was smiling slightly. "Still, good work. Damn good work." Zara nodded, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only the bone-deep fatigue of 36 hours without real sleep and more stress than any human should carry. She thought about Morrison, about a man who'd sold out his own people because his son got embarrassed. About how fragile loyalty really was, how easily people could justify betrayal if they wrapped it in the right narrative. She thought about Al-Rashid's words about trust, about how maybe he had a point even if he was wrong about everything else. Most of all, she thought about the fact that tomorrow she'd have to face all of this, the killing, the consequences, the questions about who she was now that everyone knew what she could do. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight she'd done her job. She'd kept people alive. She'd stopped a terrorist cell and caught a traitor. Tonight that had to be enough. The debriefing lasted until dawn. Zara sat in the same conference room where she'd pitched Operation Iron Gate, except now the table was covered with evidence bags, testimony transcripts, and photographs of dead men she'd helped kill. Morrison was in federal custody. Al-Rashid was singing to save himself from a death sentence, and 7 bodies were being processed in the base morgue. 11 confirmed kills in 48 hours. The thought sat in Zara's chest like broken glass. Colonel Webb looked older than he had 2 days ago. He'd been cleared as a suspect within hours of Morrison's arrest. His version of the false intelligence had never left his office. never been transmitted, never compromised. But the knowledge that one of his own officers had betrayed the Corps seemed to have aged him years in a single night. Morrison's preliminary testimony confirms everything, Vega said, reviewing her notes. He was approached 6 months ago by an intermediary claiming to represent a private intelligence firm. They offered him $50,000 for consulting security assessments of military installations. He claims he thought it was legitimate work. Bullshit, Ridge muttered. Nobody's that naive. Agreed, Vega said. But that's what he's claiming. Says he didn't know the information was going to al-Rashid until after the Georgia attack. By then, he was in too deep afraid of prosecution if he came forward. So he kept feeding them. Intelligence kept taking money, kept telling himself it wasn't his fault when people died. Zara felt sick. He knew. After Georgia, after North Carolina, he knew exactly what he was doing. And he did it anyway. He did it because his son embarrassed him, Brennan added, pulling up Morrison's financial records. After you put his kid on his ass in the gym, Morrison started asking questions about you. Found out about your reassignment, your complaints against Hendricks, the whole story. He convinced himself you were the problem, that women like you were destroying unit cohesion, getting people killed with political correctness bullshit. He looked at Zara. You became his justification. Every time he passed intelligence to al-Rashid, he told himself he was fighting back against what you represented. The absurdity of it hit Zara like a physical blow. She'd been buried in a bus driver assignment because she'd complained about harassment, and that burial had become one man's excuse to betray everyone who'd ever worn the uniform. The circle of blame was so twisted she couldn't even begin to untangle it. So what happens to him, she asked. Federal court, multiple counts of treason, conspiracy, accessory to murder, Vega said. He's looking at life without parole if he's lucky. Death penalty if he's not. Al-Rashid is cooperating to avoid execution, giving us names, locations, financial networks. We'll dismantle the entire operation. And the people who died? Zara's voice was harder than she intended. The 4 Marines at the gate, the 2 contractors, all the others from Georgia and North Carolina. What do they get? The room went quiet, because there was no good answer to that question. The dead stayed dead. Justice didn't bring them back. It just punished the guilty and hoped that mattered to someone. Webb spoke finally, his voice heavy. They get remembered, they get honored, and we make damn sure their sacrifice stops anyone from doing this again. He looked at Zara. Because of your work, Sergeant, we stopped an attack that would have killed more people. We caught a traitor. We dismantled a terrorist cell. That doesn't fix what already happened, but it prevents what could have happened next. Zara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She was so tired. Not just physically, though she couldn't remember the last time she'd slept more than an hour. Tired of death, tired of politics, tired of the weight that came with being good at killing. Sergeant Lane, Vega said. You're being recommended for a commendation, possibly the Bronze Star for valor in combat. Your actions saved lives across multiple engagements. I don't want a medal, Zara said immediately. That's not really how it works. I don't want a medal, she repeated more firmly. I want to go back to work. I want to train people so this doesn't happen again. I want to make sure the next bus driver who gets attacked knows how to fight back. She met Vega's eyes. I want to matter for what I can teach, not what I can destroy. Vega studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I think that can be arranged. Webb stood. You're all dismissed. Get some rest. We'll reconvene at 1400 to finalize reports. He looked at Zara. Lane, stay behind, please. Everyone filed out. Zara remained seated, fighting the exhaustion that threatened to pull her under. When the door closed and they were alone, Webb sat down across from her. How are you really doing? He asked. Honestly, sir, I don't know anymore. That's fair. It's been a hell of a 48 hours. Webb pulled out a folder, set it on the table. This is your new assignment. Head instructor for base security response training. You'll develop curriculum-trained personnel across all specialties, drivers, logistics, administrative staff. Everyone who sets foot on this base will learn basic combat readiness from you. Zara looked at the folder, then at Webb. Sir, I appreciate this, but I'm not sure I'm the right person to... You're exactly the right person. You've been where they are underestimated, overlooked, told your job doesn't matter. You know what it's like when chaos erupts and suddenly everyone's expectations change in seconds. You can teach them to survive that. Webb leaned forward. And between you and me, I need someone who gives a damn. Someone who won't just check boxes and move on. Someone who'll make sure what happened to Morrison's betrayal victims never happens again. What about my record? The complaints against Hendricks, the reassignment. Being reviewed as we speak. Hendricks is facing court-martial on multiple counts. Your complaints have been vindicated. Your record will be corrected. Webb's expression softened slightly. You were right, Lane. About all of it. And you paid a price for being right. I can't give you back 11 months. But I can give you a chance to make sure the next person who speaks up doesn't get buried for it. Zara picked up the folder, opened it, scanned the assignment orders. Head instructor. Full curriculum development authority. Access to all base resources. It was everything she'd wanted and more. It was validation after 11 months of invisibility. So why did it feel so complicated? I'll do it, she said finally. But I have conditions. Webb raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating with me. Yes, sir. First condition, no more political bullshit. I run the training how it needs to be run. No interference from officers worried about optics. Second, I want Davies as my assistant instructor. He's good with people, he's been through hell and come back and he gives a damn. Third, she paused, gathering courage. I want mandatory counseling for anyone involved in combat engagements. No exceptions, including me. Webb considered this. Done, done, and done. Anything else? Just one thing, sir. The trainees who mocked me, Morrison's kid and his friends. I want them in my first class. You sure about that? Positive. They need to learn. And I need to prove I can teach people who started out thinking I was nothing. Zara met his eyes. That's the whole point, isn't it? Changing minds. Proving capability. Making sure the next black woman who wears this uniform doesn't have to kill 11 people before anyone takes her seriously. Webb smiled grimly. You're going to be a pain in my ass, aren't you? Yes, sir. That's the plan. Good. I like a pain in the ass who's right more often than wrong. He stood, offered his hand. Welcome to your new assignment, Instructor Lane. Don't make me regret this. Zara shook his hand. I'll do my best, sir. She left the conference room and walked out into morning light that felt surreal after everything that had happened. The base was returning to normal operations, Marines running PT vehicles, moving supplies, the rhythm of military life continuing despite the violence that had torn through it 2 days ago. Her phone buzzed, multiple texts waiting. Davies. Heard you're teaching now, about damn time. When do I report for duty? Patricia Tyler wanted me to thank you again. He's having nightmares, but the counselor says he'll be okay. You saved our lives. We won't forget. Mrs. Chen, my daughter told me what you did. Thank you for protecting my grandson. You are always welcome in our home. And one from a number she didn't recognize. This is Private Jackson from last night. Just wanted to say thank you for the advice. I was scared, but I did my job. We all made it home. That's because of you. Zara read them all twice, felt something crack in her chest. Not breaking, more like thawing. The ice she'd built around herself during 11 months of careful invisibility was finally melting. And underneath it, she found something she'd forgotten she had. Purpose. At 0830 hours, she found Davies in the physical therapy wing, working on exercises for his prosthetic. He saw her coming and grinned. So, head instructor, that's a hell of a promotion from bus driver. You're my assistant, Zara said without preamble. If you want it. Davies stopped mid-exercise. Seriously. Seriously. I need someone who understands what it's like to rebuild after losing everything. Someone who can connect with people who think they're done fighting. Someone who... She paused. Someone who had my back when it mattered. I grabbed a rifle and followed you into a firefight without orders, Davies said. Pretty sure that's against regulations. Pretty sure saving lives matters more than regulations. Zara sat down beside him. So what do you say? Want to help me turn every person on this base into someone who can fight back when hell breaks loose? Davies considered for maybe 3 seconds. Hell yes. When do we start? 2 weeks. I need time to develop curriculum and recover from the past 48 hours. You need time to finish your therapy regimen and get cleared for full duty. Deal. Davies offered his hand. Zara shook it. Fair warning, though, I'm going to be terrible at the teaching part. I'm much better at the shooting things part. Then we'll figure it out together. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Davies said, You okay? Really? Zara thought about lying, about giving the expected answer. But Davies had earned honesty. No, she said, but I will be, eventually. Good enough for me. At 1100 hours, Zara reported to the base counseling center for her mandatory first session. The counselor was a Navy psychologist named Commander Patricia Rodriguez, mid-40s, with kind eyes and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd heard every story and wasn't shocked by any of them. Sergeant Lane, I've been expecting you. Rodriguez gestured to a chair. Before we start, I want you to know everything discussed here is confidential unless you're a danger to yourself or others. This isn't about fitness for duty evaluations. This is about helping you process what you've experienced. Zara sat feeling exposed in a way that combat never made her feel. Fighting was straightforward. Talking about feelings was terrifying. I killed 11 people in 2 days, she said bluntly. Everyone's treating me like a hero. I don't feel like a hero. What do you feel like? Zara struggled to find words. Tired, angry, relieved it's over, guilty it took violence for people to see me as competent, confused about what happens next. She paused, and scared that I'm better at killing than at anything else. Rodriguez nodded, made a note. Those are all normal responses to trauma and extreme stress. Let's unpack them one at a time. Starting with the guilt about recognition. Why do you think you feel guilty about that? Because I spent 11 months trying to do everything right. Followed orders, stayed quiet, didn't make waves. And nobody cared. But the minute I killed people, suddenly I'm valuable. What does that say about what the military actually values? What do you think it says? Zara laughed bitterly. That results matter more than process. That violence is respected more than patience. That I wasted 11 months trying to prove I could be more than a weapon, when being a weapon is the only thing anyone actually wants from me. Rodriguez set down her pen, met Zara's eyes directly. Do you believe that's true? I don't know what I believe anymore. Then let me offer an alternative perspective. You spent 11 months demonstrating patience, discipline, and commitment to service even when that service was undervalued. You showed up every day, did your job well, and maintained your integrity. That matters. The violence at the end doesn't erase those 11 months, it reveals that you're capable of both. You can be patient, and you can be lethal. You can drive a bus, and you can stop a terrorist attack. You're not just a weapons sergeant. You're a professional with multiple capabilities, and the military is finally recognizing all of them. Zara felt something shift in her chest. Not resolution exactly, but possibility. The idea that maybe she didn't have to choose between being a soldier and being human. Maybe she could be both. I'm going to teach, she said. Base security training. Make sure the next person in my position knows how to fight back. That sounds like a good way to process what you've experienced. Turn trauma into purpose. Is that healthy? Or am I just avoiding dealing with it? Rodriguez smiled slightly. Both can be true. Yes, you're channeling trauma into productive work. And yes, you still need to process the trauma itself. That's why you're here. That's why you'll keep coming back weekly until we both agree you've worked through it. What if I never work through it? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But Sergeant Lane, Rodriguez leaned forward slightly. You've survived 11 months of being invisible. You've survived 2 days of extreme violence. You've survived betrayal, combat, and the weight of decisions most people will never have to make. I have no doubt you'll survive the aftermath too. Zara wanted to believe that. She really did. At 1400 hours, she was back in the conference room for final debriefs. The mood was more relaxed now. Crisis averted, traitor caught, mission accomplished. Ridge was there, looking less exhausted than he had at dawn. Vega and Brennan were packing up their case files, preparing to move on to the next investigation. Final casualty report, Ridge said, reading from his tablet. 4 Marines KIA in the initial gate attack. 2 civilian contractors KIA. 11 hostile combatants KIA across both engagements. 2 hostile combatants in custody, including al-Rashid. 0 friendly casualties during the Echo 7 operation. He looked up. That last part is remarkable, by the way. The tactical plan was executed perfectly. Sergeant Lane's plan, Vega clarified. Let's make sure credit goes where it's due. Noted and documented, Webb said. The after-action report will reflect that. Lane, your commendation paperwork is being processed. I know you said you don't want it, but it's happening anyway. Sometimes we don't get to choose how our service is recognized. Zara nodded, accepting the inevitable. Yes, sir. One more thing, Brennan said, pulling up something on his laptop. Al-Rashid's cooperation has been extensive. We've identified 17 other personnel involved in his network, including 5 more inside informants at different installations. FBI is making arrests as we speak. This operation didn't just stop one cell, it dismantled an entire intelligence-gathering network. How many lives did we save? Zara asked quietly. Brennan met her eyes. Impossible to calculate exactly, but al-Rashid's network had collected information on over 300 Afghan and Iraqi interpreters, dozens of safe houses, multiple ongoing operations. If that information had reached hostile actors, he shook his head. Hundreds of people would have died, maybe thousands. You stopped that. The weight of it settled on Zara's shoulders. She'd killed 11 people, but she'd saved hundreds, maybe thousands. The math didn't make it easier, but it made it necessary. And maybe that was enough. The briefing concluded. People filed out, heading back to their regular duties, the crisis becoming history. Zara was gathering her things when Vega approached. Sergeant, before I leave, I wanted to give you something. She handed Zara a business card. That's my direct line. If you ever need anything, advice or reference someone to talk to who understands what it's like to be a woman in a man's world, you call me. Anytime. Zara looked at the card, then at Vega. Thank you, ma'am. That means more than you know. I know exactly what it means, because 20 years ago, someone did the same thing for me, and it made all the difference. Vega smiled. You're going to do great things, Lane. I can feel it. Just don't lose yourself in the process. I'll try not to. That's all any of us can do. 2 weeks later, Zara stood in front of her first training class. 40 personnel drivers, logistics, specialists, administrative staff, maintenance crews. And, in the front row, Private Morrison and his 2 friends, who'd mocked her when she was just the bus driver. Morrison looked uncomfortable, his father's betrayal hanging over him like a cloud. But he'd shown up. That counted for something. My name is Sergeant Zara Lane, she began, her voice carrying across the training room. 2 weeks ago, I was driving a charity bus on this base. Some of you knew me then. Most of you didn't. I was invisible, underestimated, dismissed. She paused, let that sink in. And then someone attacked this base, and everything changed. She clicked to the first slide photographs of the gate attack, the casualties, the chaos. This is what happens when we're not ready, when we think our jobs don't matter, when we forget that everyone on a military installation is a target regardless of their MOS. She advanced to the next slide. I'm here to make sure you're ready. To make sure that when hell breaks loose, you know how to fight back. To make sure nobody ever looks at you and thinks you can't handle yourself. Morrison raised his hand tentatively. Sergeant, can I say something? Zara nodded. Go ahead. Morrison stood, looked uncomfortable, but determined. I owe you an apology. We all do. He gestured to his friends. We mocked you, made jokes, didn't take you seriously, and then you saved lives while we were hiding. I was wrong. We were wrong. And I'm sorry. The room was silent. Zara could have torn him apart, could have used his father's betrayal as ammunition, could have made him regret every word he'd ever said to her. Instead, she said, Apology accepted. Now sit down and learn. Because this isn't about the past. This is about making sure you're ready for the future. Morrison sat, relief visible on his face. Zara continued. This course is 8 weeks. You'll learn tactical driving, emergency response weapons, familiarization, hand-to-hand combat, and crisis decision-making. Some of you will hate it. Some of you will think it's unnecessary. But by the end, every single one of you will be capable of protecting yourself and others when it matters most. Davy stepped forward from where he'd been standing at the side of the room. And if you think this is going to be easy because the instructors are a small black woman and a guy with one arm, you're in for a surprise. We're going to work you harder than you've ever been worked. Because we care about keeping you alive. Any questions? Zara asked. A hand went up in the back, a young woman, maybe 22, in a supply corps uniform. Sergeant Lane, is it true you used to be Scout Sniper qualified? Yes. And they made you drive a bus? Yes. Why? Zara considered her answer carefully. This was the moment where she could educate or embitter, where she could spread cynicism or inspire change. Because the military is made up of people, and people make mistakes. They let politics interfere with competence. They let bias override ability. They protect careers instead of principles. She paused. But people can also learn. People can change. People can recognize when they were wrong and do better. That's what we're doing here, being better, making sure capability matters more than assumptions. The young woman nodded slowly. Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you for asking. Zara clicked to the next slide. Now let's get started. 6 months later, Zara had trained over 300 personnel. The program had expanded to include quarterly refresher courses and had been adopted as a model for other installations. Davies was thriving as an instructor, his ability to connect with struggling students making him invaluable. And Zara had settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable, teaching during the day, counseling sessions once a week, occasional consultations with federal investigators tracking the remnants of al-Rashid's network. She still had nightmares. Still woke up sometimes, seeing the faces of the men she'd killed. But she was learning to carry the weight instead of letting it bury her. On a Tuesday morning that felt remarkably like the Tuesday when everything had changed, Zara was conducting a tactical driving exercise when her phone rang. Unknown number. Lane, she answered. Sergeant Lane, this is Captain Emma Chen, Pentagon Personnel Division. I'm calling to inform you that your appeals regarding your previous reassignment have been fully reviewed and approved. Your record has been corrected. All reprimands related to your complaints against Lieutenant Colonel Hendricks have been expunged, and you're being offered a promotion to Staff Sergeant effective immediately. Zara pulled the training vehicle over her hands, suddenly shaking. Say that again. You're being promoted. Your record is clean. And you're being offered a position with the Marine Corps Special Operations Command if you want it. Training cadre for advanced combat skills. They specifically requested you based on your recent performance evaluations. Everything she'd fought for, everything she'd been denied, now being handed to her on a silver platter. Can I think about it? Zara asked. Of course. You have 30 days to decide. But Sergeant Lane, Captain Chen's voice softened slightly. What you did, what you survived, what you built from the wreckage of your career, it matters. It changed policy. It opened investigations. It made people pay attention to problems they'd been ignoring. You should be proud of that. Thank you, ma'am. Zara hung up, sat in the stationary vehicle, and tried to process. MARSOC. Special Operations, the elite of the elite. Everything she'd trained for, everything she'd dreamed of before politics and harassment had derailed her career. But she thought about her training classes, about Morrison learning to defend himself, no longer the cocky trainee who thought bus drivers didn't matter, about the young woman from Supply Corps who'd just qualified as an expert marksman, about Davies teaching hand-to-hand combat to personnel who'd never thrown a punch in their lives. She thought about purpose versus prestige, about building something that lasted versus chasing personal glory. 29 days later, she called Captain Chen back. Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am, but I'm declining the MARSOC position. I'm staying here. My students need me more than Special Operations does. There was a pause. Then Chen said, That's your choice, Sergeant. But for the record, I think it's the right one. Good luck. Zara accepted the promotion to staff sergeant, but stayed exactly where she was in front of classes, teaching people that their jobs mattered, that capability came in forms people didn't always expect. 3 years later, on another Tuesday morning, Zara was walking across the base when she saw a young black woman stepping off a bus in a gray V-neck and tactical pants, helping an elderly civilian with bags. The woman moved with quiet confidence, checking her surroundings, positioning herself between potential threats and the people she was escorting. Zara recognized that posture, that awareness, that careful balance between visibility and readiness. She approached the bus driver as the last passenger disembarked. "Morning, you're new here." The woman turned, snapped a quick salute. "Yes, Staff Sergeant, just assigned last week. Private Andrea Washington Transport Services." "At ease, Private." Zara studied her, saw herself from 4 years ago. "You prior service, combat engineer ma'am, 2 deployments, got injured, reassigned to non-combat duties." Washington's jaw tightened slightly. "They said driving a bus was more appropriate for my limitations." "What limitations?" "Shrapnel damage to my left leg. Slows me down sometimes. Command decided I wasn't fit for engineering work anymore." Zara heard the frustration in Washington's voice, the anger at being sidelined, the determination to prove she was more than her reassignment. She heard her own story echoing across time. "Private Washington, how are you with a rifle?" Washington blinked, surprised. "Expert marksman, ma'am." "Why?" "Because next Tuesday, you're sitting in on my advanced tactical training course. No arguments." Zara handed her a card with her office information. "And if you're interested, I'm always looking for assistant instructors. People who understand what it's like to be underestimated. People who know how to turn obstacles into opportunities." Washington looked at the card, then at Zara, hope dawning in her eyes. "You're Sergeant Lane, the bus driver who fought like a SEAL. Staff Sergeant Lane now, and I'm the instructor who makes sure the next bus driver knows how to fight back." Zara smiled. "See you Tuesday, Private. Oh, 600. Don't be late." She walked away, leaving Washington staring after her with the same expression Zara probably wore 4 years ago when Colonel Webb gave her a chance she didn't think she deserved. The circle continued. The cycle of underestimation and opportunity of being dismissed and proving capable of falling and rising again. And Zara Lane, who'd started as just a bus driver, who'd killed 11 enemies and saved hundreds of lives, who'd been buried by politics and elevated by necessity, who'd learned that strength came in forms people didn't always recognize, she was exactly where she needed to be. Not in special operations, not chasing glory or promotions or vindication. Right here, teaching, building, ensuring that every person who felt invisible knew they had the power to be seen. Because she'd learned the hardest lesson of all: you didn't need permission to matter. You didn't need recognition to be capable. You didn't need someone else's approval to know your own worth. You just needed to show up, do the work, and refuse to quit when the world told you that you didn't belong. Zara Lane had driven a bus until the day she didn't need to anymore. And then she'd built an army of people who understood that every job matters. Every person has value, and underestimating someone is the fastest way to learn you were wrong. She'd gone from invisible to indispensable, not because she'd asked for it, but because when the moment came, she'd been ready. And now she was making sure everyone else would be ready too. That was the mission. That was the purpose. That was the legacy she'd build from the ashes of 11 months nobody remembered and 48 hours nobody could forget. Staff Sergeant Zara Lane walked across the base toward her next class, her dark brown curls pulled back tight, her gray V-neck exposing collarbones marked with the confidence of someone who'd earned every bit of respect. She commanded her tactical pants and boots, carrying her toward a future she'd built herself. She was no longer just the bus driver. She was never just anything. She was exactly who she'd always been, someone who refused to stay invisible when the world needed her to shine.